You found a skeleton. How would you tell it's a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on this.
Hey everybody, welcome to Dapper Reacts number 55. I am here, as usual, with Vishanti, but also with Kip Davis, because we're doing some more stuff about Hebrew nonsense, and, I feel like Hebrew is somehow involved in your professional life. Is that accurate?
A little bit, and maybe, excuse me. Sorry, I spent this last week talking a lot about Greek. So I'm switching gears here,
right.
Jumping back in, turning my Hebrew brain back on.
Different language family, different script, not
different,
pretty different grammar system.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
yeah, they're not very similar languages.
No, they're not.
They both have definite articles. They've got that going.
They do. There is some flow with regards to the way the alphabets work and look, and because they were both developed out of like the proto alphabet, right? The Phoenician.
Yeah.
So, there's that, but beyond that, there's not a lot.
You ever looked into Greek so old that it's actually not written left to right? It's written in alternating order as you go down the line?
Well, you get some of this in the very ancient Proto-Hebrew scripts as well. I've been spending a little bit more time on this. In the near future, I'll be doing an appearance on Apostate of Mind, who is a YouTuber on YouTube.
That makes sense.
Who does some He does some good stuff, but he wants to do a more in-depth response to Scott Stripling's most recent appearance on Sean McDowell's channel, promoting the so-called Mount Ebal curse affixio, which dives into this question about the proto-alphabet, right? And one of the things that we see even with the proto-alphabet, like the proto-Hebrew alphabet, is that early on it could be written either left to right, right to left, or up and down, or in what's called Brafostion, which is...
I thought it was Bastrophodon.
Bastrophodon, sorry, thank you. Bastrophodon.
Not a linguist charges.
Right? As the ox plows, so you're alternating up and down or left to right.
Yeah.
So, importantly... and then we can shift gears here, but importantly, the Mount Ebal curse tablet, one of the theories forwarded about it is that the letters are written in clusters, so they don't follow a linear pattern. They're like just grouped.
Yeah, I saw
right?
that and I was like,
And then you follow it around, and it kind of does this. But we've never seen anything like that.
I mean, on its own, the spiral thing, you can see that in a few things, like there are like Old Mandaic, apotropaic spell bowls that were supposed to keep away demons that are written in Old Mandaic in a spiral. Like, so a spiral on its own.
Like, those
Aramaic
are
as well,
shaped.
right?
Yeah. It's not like a tablet.
Yeah, the tablet with the spiral, All right, we got
spiral that doesn't.
Now, we do have a few things to read here.
It's not even a spiral, though. Like, that's it, right? Like, the letters are clustered.
All over the place. Yeah,
they're clustered. So these letters are close to each other. So that must be a word. And then these letters are close to one, right? It just...
Yeah.
It's like throwing a bunch of Scrabble tiles down on the table and then trying to say, oh, well, this is actually like trying to get a message across. Like, nah.
It's stupid.
We have a few super chats and milestone chats to get through here before we actually get into this. Also, I just found out that I'm apparently the most intimidating interviewer ever.
Oh, yeah.
Because Dr. Josh Bowen was apparently intimidated during our interview, which was not my intent. My intent was actually to have a fun chat where he gets to talk about like the actual thing that he studies and gets to take a break from being interviewed about biblical slavery. But apparently instead I was intimidating because I asked questions about things like split ergativity in like Sumerian verbal argument alignment.
The chat needs to know that there's this thing going around right now in our little corner of Twitter where you're a linguist and you're not
Apparently.
beating those charges.
Yeah, no. I mean, I'm not actually a linguist, but okay, we'll just leave it. It's
Walking
fine.
the black spiral intensifies. That's a great reference. Thank you, Dr. Don.
All right. So first of all, well before the stream started, but late enough for the viewer activity to catch it, Fearmonger, lover of consonants, who's been a member for 16 months, says Klingon ilhitna vetluchtach ilij judge, which I will say Rech hivjetlijdak ilhar judge, and take a drink for it.
Dude, are you guys speaking Klingon to each other?
Yes, that was exactly what that was. That was Klingon.
God damn it. Do we take a drink for that?
Sure, why not? He said, I'm drinking Klingon blood wine, although he put the suffix on it that says, like, that's definitely what this is. Like, there's no doubt about that. And then he said, may your blood scream, which is a traditional Klingon toast. So I responded in kind with another traditional toast, meaning, may you always find a bloodworm in your glass.
Glorios.
Yeah, Glorios are...
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I could make it a Glorio in your glass, but that would be non-traditional.
Very non-traditional.
Ben Paluto, Thick Tunicate, who's been a member for 11 months and is at the ambient level, said, it is said that the collective noun for members of the genus Madoqua is an AIG, and in case you guys don't know, Madoqua is in fact the generic name for the Dick, which is
yeah, those
adorable.
little tiny...
And also
yeah,
hilarious.
I don't even know what that is.
Deek.
Oh, you don't know what a dick... Oh,
I
Shanti,
don't know
find
what
pictures. Send those.
Are you finding a picture?
I'll take a
Fine,
drink for it, though.
Do that, and then the sound of an ajolote bark.
All right.
They're very cute.
Phil Cavara, who's been a member for 11 months and is at the Tetchball level, says, I hope you have a great stream, tabletop role-playing game night. Awesome, we'll have fun. I am curious as to which game you're playing. Let's see. Vandeli1998 for $10 says, finally got over my coughing fit to transition into sneezing a bunch. Well, that sucks. Having the time of my life. Hope the stream is better than my allergies. Also celebrating my 400th podcast tonight. Wow, that's a lot. Congratulations. And there's a Godzilla, so we'll take a drink for that too. All right. Jillian Premarital Mitosis Red, who's been a member for 12 months, says, this year has been a lot of fun for me. I've enjoyed getting to know all of you and becoming the Discord mom, and the kids are learning too. Awesome. Yeah, Jillian Wren is in fact our Discord mom. Yeah. Ben Paluto Thick Tunicate B2022 gifted 10 memberships. Goodness. They went to Kip Davis. Congratulations, Kip.
Woo!
Yep. Fragmag 75, Pressure the Croc Score, Cross-Platform Adventures, Rusty Longshanks, Tom Tulty, Trippy Liquids, Mike Brooks, and Ian Chen Official. Awesome. And I will take 10 drinks for that. Which, this is coffee that I'm drinking, but it does have a little something extra to make it, like, coffee you really shouldn't give to a kid.
Should you ever give coffee to a kid?
The kid's, like, 17 or something, whatever.
Depends on how much chaos you want.
Well, there's that.
So, that's what they... Oh, you drink, I gotta tell that's what they drink in Brazil, right? I went to Brazil when I was in, are you showing me a picture of a dick?
They're very cute. They're very tiny.
Oh my god, they are cute. I went to Brazil when I was 25, and that's what they made for everybody, the kids included. Was they basically cooked the coffee on the stove, but with like tons of sugar in it too. So the kids are getting like the coffee and the sugar, so they look forward to a lifetime of tooth rot and caffeine addiction, right from toddlers.
Yeah, hey, you got to start early,
right?
Becca Giustiano, who's been a member for 4 months and is at the Tetchball level, says AIG is a satchel of phalli with a Mothra emoji, so we'll take a drink for that too. All right, guys.
Fearmonger, lover of consonants in the chat, just said Vishanti casually sending Kip dick pics.
It's true.
Dick pics.
Hey, is Fearmonger, lover of consonants, trying to speak Klingon to me?
He was earlier, yeah.
Oh, was he? I didn't even notice.
Yeah.
His slaw?
He's
is that?
slaw.
Oh, that's... Hishlach. That's yes.
Hishlach.
Or it's one of the options for yes. There's 2 words for yes,
Mudge.
but whatever.
There we go.
Okay.
Mudge.
I have been known to send people unsolicited pictures of Dick Van Dyke.
Solicited dicks.
I'm not kidding either.
Solicited
Like,
dick pics.
It was solicited, wasn't it?
Yeah,
It
it was
was.
solicited, actually. Yeah.
I also have to send him an unsolicited halote Bart.
Was that
Because they're very
unsolicited?
That's terrifying.
No, they're cute. It's a little whop kind of sound. It's adorable.
Oh, okay.
All right, guys.
I'm no longer terrified.
We've been going for almost 10 minutes and we haven't actually heard from this crazy man here.
So we're talking about cute things
I
and
know,
cute animals.
I know, but that's
I have dogs, eh?
here's the thing. The longer we take for this, the more days that there's this stuff left for us. We could get through it today because we're on times 2 speed. It's possible.
Well, it doesn't matter if you don't get through it today because I won't be here next weekend. So
yeah, but Kip will.
True enough.
yeah, fun.
So, all right. To refresh everyone's memory, if you weren't here last time or maybe you just forgot, we are currently looking at a video from a Black Hebrew Israelite telling us about how Hebrew didn't have vowels until, I guess, the Masoretes invented them, which
in the 6th century.
which isn't remotely true, and also his version of Hebrew that is, was made up in the 20th century, that quote unquote doesn't have vowels, actually has lots of vowels. It's just that most of them are just a ah sound, which isn't how any language works, right? Like you can find like the language with the fewest phonemes, and none of them are just a series of consonants followed by an ah sound. That's in fact, I believe typically the language cited as the language with the fewest phonemes known is Tok Pisin, and it still has 3 vowels. So
I bet they get used a lot.
They do. Well, it also has a very simple syllable structure. It's just consonant verb, and there's only about I think there's only something like 30 or 40 actual syllables that are valid in the language because it has so few phonemes. It's a little ridiculous. But then again, it is the language with the fewest reported phonemes, so it's going to be a little ridiculous. Well, natural language. I'm sure someone has come up with some constructed language that's just one syllable of different. You vary how many times you say it or something.
I mean, that's not super far off from Santa.
That's true. Yeah, we got to get Agmashwa on here one of these days to talk about languages.
I'm telling you, you're not beating the charges.
Why? Because I watch Agmashwa's channel? No.
Talking about linguistics all the time. Also, Dutch Tunicate Official says, Vishanti, you got me addicted to Modelo Especial or Negro Modelo. And now you made me want an ajolote. Don't eat them. They're endangered. They're cute little salamanders.
They're endangered in the wild. The captives populations are doing just fine.
Wow, that definitely makes them not endangered in the wild.
Well, it means don't go catch one in the wild, but if you buy one from a pet store that's captive bred, you're not going to do anything to that species by...
Don't eat them.
Yeah, I still don't recommend eating them. But also, Sanguine Sonder for $2. Sanguine Saunders for $2 says, AIG is a bag of tiny antelopes, and I will take a drink for that. The smallest antelope. All right, here we go. Let's see what this guy has for us.
Right now, I'm about to go into a book called...
he is on times 2 speed.
Proofs of the interpolations of the vowel letters and the text of the Hebrew Bible by Charles William Wall. And basically what he does in his book, he breaks...
Okay, now, Kip, as a scholar of the Hebrew language, are you familiar with this book?
No. Proofs of the interpolation of the vowel letters in the text of the Hebrew Bible and grounds thence derived for a revision of its authorized English version. No, I don't know this one, but it looks old.
It does. It looks like it was probably published sometime in the 70s.
Old as
I was going to say the 19th century.
Yeah, really.
With a title like that.
Well, that's the kind of title it is, but
I was going to say
the floral patterns
titles
like the little 20th
that
century to me.
And it's published.
Gigantic, complex sentence.
It's published by a company called Forgotten Books. So
this is going to be full of crap.
Do you think maybe it was channeled? Could this have been channeled wisdom?
Maybe. The interpolation of vowel letters in the text of the Hebrew Bible, though, it's kind of an interesting topic. I think this is probably like a book about Hebrew orthography, and based on the title and the argument that he seems to be forwarding, I suspect it was also published prior to the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, which is where we learned a lot about Hebrew orthography.
Vadim Slofsky Redchenko requested that I put him at 1.5. I will make a compromise. He is currently at 1.7. We'll see how that goes. Because he speaks way too slowly for anything approaching normal speed.
Yeah. We're at halfway, right? Is that the halfway point?
No, we're past the halfway point, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, we're good.
The Hebrew being used today as false, okay? It's not the real Hebrew that our forefathers spoke, okay? And what I want to go...
I mean, to some extent, he is right that the Hebrew as used today, both liturgically and as an everyday language, is not identical to the language being spoken around even the time of the Dead Sea Scrolls or earlier, but also...
But I know that's not what he meant by it.
No, it's not, because But I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, but this isn't some grand conspiracy either, right? Like, modern Hebrew was developed in the 19th century on the basis of attempting to simplify and modernize older forms of Hebrew, including like biblical Hebrew and lots of the Mishnaic Hebrew. Did I say rabbinic Hebrew? And this was done as part of a larger program in the 19th century concerning Jewish national identity.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, as one of the only successful language revivals, it helps to have an entire community who didn't share any other languages apart from their background with Hebrew.
Right. Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons why I'm very skeptical of things like...
Yeah, I was going to say, Pat Longer's in the chat. Yay!
That's one of the reasons why I tend to be very skeptical of language revivals. Oh, yes. But, like, people are like, oh, yeah, we're going to bring back Irish. No, you're not. Everyone who speaks Irish, with very few exceptions, speaks English better than Irish, which means it's just never going to come back.
That's right.
You don't have a whole community where the only language they all share is Irish, so that's the one they end up speaking. You just don't have it. Everyone who you want to get back into Irish already speaks English as their first language, with the exception of a few people in a few of the western counties in Ireland. It's just not going to happen. Which reminds me, my adoptive human father, of course, is already lording over all of his friends about their upcoming trip to Europe, because with his Irish passport, he'll be able to get through customs more easily. And then he'll be able to get through customs easily again when he gets back to the States, because he also has a U.S. passport.
He doesn't have to wait the extra 75 minutes.
He's like, I'm going to go hang out at the bar while you guys go finish going through customs.
Ooh.
Because I'm Irish.
He's going to go, hang out at the airport bar and spend all his money on a $35 beer.
I suspect he might actually exit the airport and go to a nearby bar.
Oh, there you go. That's a much wiser. Yeah. Much wiser.
Hey, Kip. You were correct.
You posted the picture, right? Yeah.
Oh, is this the guy?
Cognitive Treffication noted that he found the author, put the picture in the Discord. Yeah, this is a 19th century work, maybe even early 19th century.
Well,
I don't know.
Let's see what our friend here has to say about it.
Let's see what he has to say.
I'm going to go on page.
Oh, by the way, there's drinking rules. I'm not going over them. You guys hear them all the time. If they're new, you'll pick them up anyway.
So
sorry.
I wasn't asked what I'm drinking today.
Yes.
So I'm drinking coffee, but because I don't like drinking out of insulated like Vishanti, I put mine in like regular ceramic mugs, and I added vodka to it this morning so that it's a little better when it cools off and I'm drinking lukewarm coffee.
You're almost is there milk in there? Or cream or anything?
God, no.
Okay.
No.
So you're almost drinking a Black Russian.
Yeah.
Okay.
Almost.
Of the introduction. Okay. Just to see what he had to say. Okay.
We can't see anything about what he's supposed to say. You're scrolling through it too fast, guy.
Now, a lot of people might say, you got the information from the so-called white man. Okay. Listen.
Russian in there.
Yeah, see, we have to apologize because this information is from a white man. If you're white, you're automatically suspect in terms of your knowledge of Hebrew. That's just a thing that's true, apparently.
Truth is the truth, right? The truth is the truth.
Okay.
Now let's see what he had to say. Now I'm on page 5 of the introduction, and I'm going to start right here. Okay? And it says what? That the Hebrew Bible, as it issued from the pens of it says that the Hebrew Bible, as it issued from the pens of its inspired authors, was written without vowel signs of any kind. You see that? He even said that the vowel signs of any kind didn't exist. It says,
so that's actually an interesting claim, right? Do we have... Oh, take it from Godzilla came by. Now, so do we actually have reason to think that even using letters like Yod and Vav and Hey and whatnot and Aleph to stand in for vowels was something that was occurring at the time some of these texts were written?
Absolutely.
Like, I feel like at least
I mean, we have evidence of it, right? Like there is a wide range, and even beyond the Dead Sea Scrolls, just to give people a sense of what's going on here. The standard version of the Hebrew Bible is known as the Masoretic text. It is our printed versions are derived, and the Torah scrolls that are penned nowadays are derived from the same text as it appears in the Leningrad Codex, which dates to the 10th century CE, AD, right? So, but we have a whole bunch of medieval Hebrew manuscripts beyond just the Leningrad Codex. And something that we do observe in them is orthographic variation, where on occasion, like even the Masoretic text will preserve vowel letters sometimes, right? But we see a lot more in a variety of other medieval Hebrew manuscripts. We see a whole bunch in copies of the Hebrew Bible that survive from the Dead Sea Scrolls. So, I mean, it's just a flat out false claim to say that there were no vowel letters.
Now, this guy from the 19th century, we might be able to give him a pass, right? Because he obviously was working on Hebrew manuscripts.
Oh yeah, he probably was unaware of a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
And even then, I think there was the orthography was not well understood back then either. Not like you know the go figure, the increase of our data set has actually provided us more insight and nuance on how the situation works.
Now, here's a question.
Who knew?
The more you gather evidence and discover, the more it clarifies your understanding of something. I just find that interesting.
Yeah.
Just by way of example, okay, there are two of the most prolifically frequent instances. We talked a little bit in the first video that you showed us about the direct object marker et, right?
Yes.
When et takes a suffix, takes the third masculine singular suffix o, it turns to ot, so it becomes oto, and it's usually spelt Aleph, Tav, Vav. But there are a number of instances in the Hebrew Bible where it's spelled Aleph, Vav, Tov, Vav, with that Vav in the middle standing for the O sound. Right. It's still exactly the same. It's Oto, but it's a clear case of orthography with the vowel letter, and it appears all over the place.
Yeah,
in the Hebrew Bible. I've done that
before. Like when I'm trying to copy text in Hebrew, I will remember how the word sounds, and I'll write in one of the consonants instead of using like a vowel pointing for it.
Sure.
Just, it happens. It's a thing. You're just clarifying the sound. It's like,
one of the things I would look for in order to support this claim would actually be some kind of documentary evidence of a Hebrew text that is at least from a manuscript tradition that stretches back verifiably a long time, and that completely lacks any sense of vowel indication, even in the form of using the letters that are normally used to indicate long vowels. And I don't think we have one.
We have none.
Yeah.
Although, like, scholars of the language will tell you that certainly the orthography, the vowel letters did develop. They're a later development, right? Mm-hmm. So this is something that was picked up more and more along the way. In fact, one of the articles that I was reading just yesterday by the probably the greatest living Hebrew epigrapher, Christopher Rolston, wrote that when you look at Canaanite texts, which are effectively Hebrews, basically a form of Canaanite, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and you go far enough back, you can't even tell the difference.
Yeah.
But when you look at the early Canaanite texts, what you find is the introduction of what he calls internal orthography in texts starting in around the 8th century BCE and starting in the 8th century BCE and increasing in the 7th and 6th century BCE. But what you find is that in virtue, and this is in the totality of manuscripts that we have from that period and inscriptions, what you find is that prior to the 8th century, there is none at all.
And are any of the texts that are currently included in the Hebrew Bible?
No, none. I mean, so when we talk about texts that are in the Hebrew Bible, this is all pretty late stuff, right? Like we have ideas with regards to texts that were probably circulating in and around the time of the Iron, like the early to mid Iron Age. So from like 1000 BC to 500 BCE, you can see stuff like it's widely thought that Genesis chapter 49 or the so-called Song of Moses in Exodus chapter 15, and then the Song of Devorah in Judges 5.
Yeah, those are all like real old.
Yeah, so Judges chapter 5 is widely considered the oldest text in the Hebrew Bible and probably dates back to like the 9th century BCE. But we have no manuscript evidence at all. We have no manuscripts of the Hebrew Bible that predate the Dead Sea Scrolls. So starting in the late 3rd century BCE, we have two of these tiny little silver amulets that were discovered in Jerusalem, which have text surviving just from the so-called priestly blessing in Numbers. It's either Numbers 22 or 23. This is the "May the Lord bless you and keep you, may he make his face shine down upon you." There's two of them. Importantly, they show textual differences. There's variance between them and between the version that survives in Numbers. But that's all they have, and they're tiny, and they were rolled up, so they're not like a manuscript, right? They're not a scroll. They're amulets. They're basically these apotropaic objects that somebody scrawled like a magical formula on and would wear as a form of protection. Those are our oldest texts of anything that survives from the Hebrew Bible, but I would not call those Hebrew Bible texts, right? Those are textual objects which eventually found their way into the Hebrew Bible at a much later period in time.
Right. We have a quick question. What is an epigrapher?
An epigrapher is somebody who studies inscriptions predominantly. So these are most of the textual data that we have from the period and place of like Iron Age Israel is in the form of tablets and carvings on stone, and we have some ostraca. So those are not really inscriptions. So an inscription is basically script on stone or on clay. We can also call those texts or manuscripts.
But they're not going to be on paper or parchment or
paper, parchment, papyrus is something that is introduced later in time. It's you get very early papyri in Egypt. But it doesn't.
They basically invented it.
Yeah. So it doesn't really make its way into Canaan until quite a bit later.
Plus, even if it had, chances of us having surviving legible papyrus from that long ago in that area, probably not.
So there's a famous one You brought it up, Dapper, so I have to talk about it. There's a relatively famous one that was published maybe 10 years ago, called the so-called Jerusalem Papyrus, which purports to have been dated to the 8th century BCE, and importantly contains mention of contains the word Yerushalayim, which is the Hebrew word for Jerusalem. This was widely promoted hastily by the government of Benjamin Netanyahu as part of his fiercely nationalistic program to show the antiquity of Jewish people of Jewish descent in the city of Jerusalem, stretching all the way back to the 8th century, right? But this piece of papyrus, it's very small, is almost certainly a modern forgery.
Now, I do have to say, we have 85 people viewing, and I'm only seeing 37 likes, which means that, unfortunately, after a 7-stream streak, I have to say that I like less than half of you, half as well as you deserve. So please hit like so you don't have to get Bilbo'd again.
In the chat, Fibonacci8 says, typically if you want an inscription to survive, you have to sell some questionable copper.
Whether points or letters.
And
So what that
Nasir
talks about
jokes
the
never
Masoretic
get
vowel
old.
points that the Masoretes came up with of Tiberius, that didn't exist. And also what? The vowel letter system, the matrix lectionis, okay? That didn't exist. I'm gonna read.
Yeah, except that's wrong, though. Using a book from 1857 to help you support that doesn't really help. Pibblepunk, half dog, half canine for $5 says, I think this guy's onto something. Linguistic drift? Nah, that's just Big Dictionary trying to get you to buy a new edition every year. Yeah, that's true. That is true.
Man, I love the sequel to Hebrew. It's Hebrew, linguistic drift. I'm looking next for to brew.
Oh goodness.
That again, that the Hebrew Bible, as it issued from the pens of its inspired authors, was talking who the inspired authors is talking about. Moses, he wrote the first 5 books. The prophet.
Okay,
so
I don't want to get too far into it.
Crimes and documentary hypothesis.
Moses
So
definitely
importantly,
didn't write
though,
anything because he definitely, almost certainly didn't exist.
Depending on when this book was written, and maybe not even that, I think there's
1857.
1857. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So this was published almost right around the same time that Wellhausen's English version of his Prolegomena to the History of Israel was published in English, which is where the documentary hypothesis was really first popularized. So I think there's a very, very strong chance that the author here is either just unaware of the documentary hypothesis or just doesn't buy it.
Outright reject it.
Yeah. Well,
I know they
seems likely, right?
I can say something for certain. The speaker of this video rejects the documentary hypothesis.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Certainly. But even beyond that, it's just, again, based on the data that the author had available to him, and this is something that I think even Wellhausen would likely have agreed with. Based on the available data, as far as they were aware, the text in the Hebrew Bible as they had it is something that they could more or less reliably date back to at least, the time of Josiah. Mm-hmm. But with the addition of the available information, the data, the way the data has massively increased in the last 200 years.
Imagine. By the way, I'm going to shill a book.
Just wrong.
Because we're talking about the documentary hypothesis, and a lot of people may not be familiar with that, or they may want something that's very easy to digest. Friedman, who wrote the Bible,
it's a very good book.
It's very, very easy to understand. It lays everything out in a very layman-friendly way.
Nice.
And I highly recommend it. It's got a little bit of a sprinkling of humor here and there, but he wrote it specifically to be palatable to casual readers who don't engage with academia at all. So, highly recommend it. I've quite liked it. I've been highlighting it and marking it all up. But
book for casuals. There you go, guys.
So now Friedman's got to be clear, Friedman's arrangement of the material is not universally accepted, right?
Yeah,
And that's
there's
one of the
things in
problems
there
here.
that I am a little for the most part. He introduces the documentary hypothesis and the idea of there being at least 2 to 4 authors, possibly more.
Yeah.
The historical reasons for that, the context of coming back from Babylon and why you would write the text at this time. It's great. I quite
So
like it.
one
We're
of
never gonna
the
finish this
one
video.
I know, I'm sorry, man. One of the another resource that's excellent from Friedman that I still find really helpful is he published another book called The Bible with Sources Revealed, where he basically lays out the entire Torah on the basis of his vision of how the sources themselves are divided, and he's color coded the entire thing so that you can basically read along, and he's provided helpful notes and explanation. You can read along and see, oh, here's a chunk of P right next to J. Oh, here's E.
Yeah.
Right? It's
Once
very,
you
very good.
And their linguistic flow and their theological goals, it starts to jump out at you very,
It really does.
very distinctly.
All right, but we're going to
And
get a little bit more of this linguistic stuff.
All right.
Also,
and then you had the writings, such as the history, the
dude
Chronicles,
in the
the
chat,
Psalms. Okay.
The Bible's not
And
universal.
then you had
Stop
respected forefathers that wrote them. It says what? Issue from the pens of its inspired authors was written without vowel signs of any kind, whether of points or letters.
No.
So our forefathers didn't use Masoretic vowel points. Our forefathers didn't use the vowel system called the matrices lectiones. They didn't.
I mean, if you go back far enough,
Okay.
yeah.
Whoa.
What?
He just conflated two things.
Mhm.
He said our
clearly doesn't know what
forefathers
he's talking about.
didn't use the vowel points. Our forefathers didn't use the matrices lectiones.
He was trying to distinguish them because he's earlier distinguished between them reliably.
Okay. I suspect, though, that this book, I mean, what is the sentence he quoted here was written without vowel sign. Okay, he does say whether points or letters.
Yeah. So
Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think our
Okay.
videographer is also distinguishing. So
Sorry.
No worries.
My bad.
use that.
Right.
All right. They just didn't. Now I'm gonna go to page 19 of this book in chapter 1. Let's see what they have to say.
The thing is, this wasn't a live video. This was edited. He could have edited this
He could have
this
cut
out.
that out.
Yeah, right.
just- come on. Could have done it.
So many creators are so lazy.
Page 19, chapter 1
Oh,
says,
okay.
says what?
I don't know. I can't.
I'm gonna start
It keeps moving.
right
Stop
here.
it.
Right, I'm gonna start right here. And it says, I may hereby anticipation add will be found equally to apply to the matrices lectiones, right? The vowel letter system.
Uh-oh.
It says what? After
Dude, you didn't charge your Kindle or whatever this is. Come on, buddy.
it shall have been proved that those letters do not any more than the points constitute part of the Hebrew scriptures as originally written. Meaning what?
Okay, but
Hey!
the thing is,
This is like saying the sky appears blue.
yeah.
Really?
Well,
Well, I'm gonna
yes.
Don't say.
Well, I'm going to take a drink because here's my understanding after I take a quick drink.
And while you
Doesn't
take
the
that quick drink,
composition-
I'm just gonna say this before you start,
I already
just
did.
really quickly. Hi, quote, God the Son, Jesus Christ saves. The source isn't the Bible itself. You can't make circular arguments. And
I mean, he
no,
just
the
did,
Bible's
though.
not univocal.
Or she, I
Don't
know.
do that. Don't do that.
They just did make
I'm
a circular argument, though.
I'm trying to be
Polite.
polite.
Okay.
Just giving you a heads up. Don't do that because I'm gonna start getting salty.
So my understanding is that the invention of the matrices lectiones, which is very early in like the history of these writing scripts, predates the composition of much of the texts in the Hebrew Bible. So
yes.
the idea that they were not part of the original compositions of at least most of it seems on the face of it kind of crazy. Like, if you were to tell me like the priestly blessing actually predates the use of any vowel indication in the script, I'd be like, again, that seems okay to me. But if you're going to tell me like, yeah, Daniel and Deuteronomy, those never had any matrices lectiones, I don't believe you.
Oh, no chance.
Yeah.
No chance at all, right?
So that's why I took the drink, is just because, I mean, they so far postdate this invention. Because the thing is, it is hard to find texts that are early enough that invention hadn't been made, right? Like, it's really not that easy. You have to look really far back. And the thing is, you can actually see with the same use of the same letters, or almost the same letters, in different Semitic alphabets for the same vowels or similar vowels, right? Like, from our early inscriptions, all the way back in, like, Nabatean times, right? When the Nabateans mostly wrote in Aramaic, but when they had graffiti and whatnot, it was actually an early form of Arabic, because that was the actual language being spoken by the Nabateans, was Arabic. Aramaic was an official court language. So when you look at their Aramaic and their Arabic inscriptions, you get the same thing, right? You're still getting these letters being used as stand-ins for vowels all the way back at that point. And it's this widespread invention, which probably means it's pretty early, because by the time you get to the Nabatean inscriptions, we're pretty late into the history of, like, Semitic linguistics. Most of the current divisions that we see have already occurred. Right? Like, we're not looking at, like, the proto-languages that unite all of the Western Semitic languages anymore. Like, they've become their own distinct languages at this point. So, yeah, now, DM, the first soul had to find a wife wing for $2, says, Super Chat check, Godzilla, AIG, bag, and then eggplant, so we'll take a drink.
Yeah.
That it didn't exist. Okay? I'm read that again. I may hereby anticipation add will be found equally to apply to the matrix mechanism after it shall have been proved.
Look, he's using like poetic parallelism. He's just doing it badly.
That those letters do not any more than the points constitute part of the Hebrew scriptures as originally.
So he's like Matthew.
Yes.
Sorry.
Or at least the author of the book ascribed to Matthew.
One person in chat will
We
get
could call him
this,
Matthew.
and I
That's
don't
fine by
care.
me, yeah.
Klib, Malukal.
Okay? Meaning what? That it didn't exist. It didn't exist, man. It did not exist. So the Hebrew is being spoken.
Question. Maybe I'm getting
word
ahead
internet used to not exist.
What is the question there?
Maybe I'm getting ahead of the video a little bit, but
Maybe.
what's the point?
That's a good question. Good question. Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
Written in today, it's not true, man. It's not true. So what is true? Okay, that's a good question.
Okay, here, what is true? So this should be the point, right? Because now he's going to tell us the real truth.
Okay, I'm ready for it.
I'm gonna go to page 8 of the same book and in the introduction,
I guess this is an iPad, probably.
and it says right here, in the first place, yeah, because that was a good question. You know, what is the true Hebrew, and where did this
Yeah, answer the question, my dude.
where did all this false Hebrew vowel letter system originally come from? Okay, where did it come from? And why were Israelites speaking it? Okay, these are all questions that you need to ask yourself, man. And it just happened to be that page 8.
Yes, because remember, a natural progression of language development isn't one of our options. So this has to be a nefarious imposition on the Israelites. Pipplepunk, half dog, half canine for $5 says, wait till this guy finds out English didn't used to have all these punctuation marks either. Damn you, Isidore of Seville. Yeah, it's true. Actually, the modern relatively complex punctuation system that you see in English and many other languages using the Latin alphabet is pretty darn recent. And also, like, it's gotten much, much more complicated in the last century or so. If you look at, like, style guides from, like, a century ago, there's, like, 3 rules for how to use commas, and, like, that's about it. You look at modern style guides, and the section on commas is, like, what an entire chapter of the book.
I'm gonna defend that slightly, just because when this guy was writing, back in, like, the middle of the 19th century, comma trains were just de jure, that was just the thing.
Yeah, I mean,
everybody wrote like paragraph long, one sentence, comma trains. Maybe you'll get a hyphen, or you might get a semicolon occasionally. But yeah, it's like
the rules around punctuation were far less standardized.
You guys read his highlighted text, yeah?
He's writing it. So.
Oh yeah, I read it.
The introduction of this book answers it. Okay. They have a lot of good information in this book. I recommend brothers buy, a hard copy of this book instead of using the.
This is great information 200 years ago, guys.
Yeah,
cutting
really.
edge.
Yeah, I would recommend getting some up-to-date scholarly works on Hebrew grammar and orthography, but what do I know?
A hard copy before the price on this book, damn, it goes to $1,000, man. All right.
And you're recommending that people buy a 200-year-old $1,000 book? Man, you better be getting a kickback on that, my guy.
So right now I'm on page 8, and I'm going to start right here where it says in the first place. And it says, in the first place, then about 2 centuries after the determination of the Babylonian captivity, and while a considerable number of persons still continued to speak pure Hebrew as their vernacular dialect, Asia was invaded by a people who introduced into the original alphabet the vast improvements of vowel letters, okay? And he's talking about what? He's talking about the children of Israel being invaded by certain heathen nations. And them being invaded by certain heathen nations.
What nation would that be?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure
that's not clear to me because vowel letters were already established by the end of the Babylonian captivity, weren't they?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is
now
just,
I expect though, again, like let's try and be charitable to the author here. I suspect what he's getting at is that, I mean, at this point in time, there was already an awareness that the script we recognize as Hebrew is actually Aramaic, introduced or at least widely popularized by the Persians, who invaded Babylon. I suspect that's maybe what he's getting at here.
okay, so this is like Cyrus the Great coming in.
Yeah.
Like that?
So
Okay.
and the suggestion of this author is that this is where the introduction of Mater's Laconis came from.
But that's
Now-
not true.
No, but he wouldn't have known that either.
Okay, fair.
Right? So I think it was
Bingo.
probably a fair guess back in 1857.
Wow, Fearmonger already got a bingo.
I already got a bingo.
Nice.
Oh, what's a bingo?
Oh, we have bingo cards. They're not actually administered by me, but most of my streams have a special bingo card made just for that stream. And
Wow.
you can check off the... So congrats to
He
Fearmonger.
said check off.
Also, Fade
Ah.
Gray gifted
Yeah.
a Dapper Dinosaur membership, and it went to Flum666. So we'll take a drink. Thank you very much.
Sweet.
So yeah, I mean, this is basically just... Yeah, okay, when you use 200-year out-of-date sources, you're going to find things that are not accepted today, but maybe they'll align with your bias, so congrats, I guess.
Now we're getting into some real Michael Jones level of scholarly
So the other,
research here.
so in the second, I'll say something about the second paragraph here too.
You don't want to let him say it? And then we...
No, I'll let him say it,
Oh,
and then
okay, got
I
it,
have
got
something
it.
to say about it.
They introduced not only their customs, okay? A lot of people forget the history of what happened to the children of Israel.
So one of the things I do want to point out, though, is even if this first paragraph were true, what that would mean is that the Israelites started using a less defective version of an alphabet for their own language. It doesn't actually mean that the language itself changed, right? Because remember, this is the vast improvement of vowel letters that is being talked about. It's not the introduction of vowels themselves, which is crazy because that's not how language works, right? No one shows up with a new alphabet for a language that previously had an other alphabet or just didn't have a writing system at all. And then suddenly those people are like, oh, well, now we can make new sounds in our language that we weren't making before. Like, that's not
Isn't,
how it works.
Which language is it? It's like Mongolian or something that's had like a gajillion different writing
I
alphabets.
mean, yeah, Mongolian has had like 4 official alphabets. It's also had like an
rounded up.
official logography that was used in China. And then, I mean, even Aramaic, right? So there's all sorts of alphabets that have been used for Aramaic. The one that turned into the Hebrew block letters is one of the more popular ones, but Syriac is a dialect of Aramaic.
Yep.
To some
Wait till
extent,
people learn about like how Maimonides wrote in Judeo-Arabic.
yeah. Like the Old Mandaic was itself basically a dialect of Aramaic that has its own script. It's just like there's so many alphabets that were used for these, and the thing is, at no point does the alphabet determine the sounds of the language. People who adopt alphabets take the alphabet and they just kind of shoehorn their language on top of that alphabet. It's one of the reasons why English is really not well represented by the alphabet it uses, but that doesn't mean that the rather shoddy fit between the Latin alphabet and the English language is changing how English speakers say things. It just means we have to spell things weird. That's it.
I'm looking at this first paragraph again, and it's kind of weird because I think, like, instinctively, it makes me think that he's talking about the introduction of the Aramaic script by the Persians, but he talks about this happening 2 centuries after the termination of Babylonian captivity, which would actually align with the conquest of Alexander. But I don't see
way
how
too late for vowel letters coming in. That's way too late.
Yeah, and I don't see how that makes sense if he's talking about the introduction of like Greek through the program of Hellenization. Like,
yeah,
that's a whole different language.
Plus, if the idea of using letters for vowels had come from the Greeks, what I would expect to see is an entire system of full representation of vowels being added to Hebrew.
Right?
Whereas if the idea comes from people speaking Aramaic, which is still wrong, but is at least more plausible, then the idea would actually be similar to what we see now, where basically only long vowels are written down as independent letters.
It feels like maybe he's cherry picking some of this stuff out of the book, because on its own, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And I have a diffdifficult time believing that this is as confusing
pseudo scholar
as
cherry picking. No. Or let's see what he has for us.
Well, I'll get into it. But the children of Israel were forced to follow a lot of the heathenistic customs. Okay?
Nothing about this is being forced on people. People adopted a script that was in common use, and that's just what happened. And you also have to remember, Aramaic was the lingua franca of the entire area for millennia, wasn't it? I mean, it wasn't even just centuries. It was a very long time.
No, And the way, like, this just happens naturally, right? Like, over long periods of time, if your children and then your grandchildren are becoming more accustomed to speaking Aramaic, or if they can write, they're learning, to write the Aramaic script. They're just going to pick that up naturally. Yeah. Like, that's just how language works.
It's actually similar to English and the Latin alphabet. English came from languages that had their own runic alphabet, but you know what? All the scholars were learning Latin, and so when people who didn't know Latin decided to start learning how to read, which was not all that uncommon, actually, like very low-level literacy wasn't actually as uncommon in the past as people like to think. They just used the script that was being used by the scholars, which was the Latin alphabet, and
no, Dapper, they were forced.
There were Roman grammar teachers
at the end of a sword,
rapping them on the knuckles. Yeah. You will use the Latin alphabet, or else. And or else what? Don't worry about that. Strawberry Visible Taxidermy Glue Vein, who's been a member for 10 months and is at the diapsid level. Thank you very much. Says, this subject is even further outside my understanding than the usual stuff, but I'm still having a good time. Thumbs up. Well, I'm glad you're still having a good time.
Hopefully I'm here to make it entertaining while these two nerds prattle on about.
Yeah. At least we haven't had to talk about ergativity yet, because Hebrew has a pretty consistently accusative nominative accusative alignment.
Oh, I love this.
A lot of people like to go into that history.
Not beating the charge.
But one of those things that the heathen nation introduced into the children of Israel by force was a vowel letter system, right?
Nope.
And it says who had introduced it to a
sign of conservatism is the idea of a pure, unadulterated past that was free of outside influence, and we need to go back and reclaim this golden age. Like, get real. It never existed.
There is no evidence to speak of for anything like this happening.
Look, our oldest written language that we can find that seems to have no connection to other languages, really, is Sumerian. But you know what Sumerian has? It has loanwords in it already at the earliest phases.
Oh, you're talking about this region. I was going to say Basque, but...
Yeah, but we don't have written inscriptions in Basque from as far back as we do for Sumerian. So it's our oldest recorded language. Obviously, languages, you can't really say which one's older than another because they've all been developing. But yeah, like there's already loanwords in ancient Sumerian inscriptions, right? And we can tell because Sumerian words follow certain patterns in terms of like how the sound works and things like that. And they have these odd words every once in a while where that doesn't fit. And you're like, yeah, this is probably a loanword. So
original alphabet, the vast improvements of vowel letters. It says, and the Jews were, in consequence, forced in spite of their prejudice to learn a species of writing that made them acquitted with the use of such letters. You see?
It's acquainted, not acquitted, because this isn't a trial.
Yeah, not acquitted. But okay, it's fine.
Yeah. Look, I've seen worse tweets, so...
It says in the second place, right here, in the second place, their scriptures were very soon afterward translated into the tongue connected with this writing.
So the Peshitta. I mean,
I mean,
I think probably the Targums.
The Targums?
Was my guess.
I was gonna say Onkelos and Pseudo Jonathan.
Okay,
so
around that time,
and I would say, I suspect. I'm afraid I'm not up on my mid
it's the
19th
Septuagint.
century
Look,
scholarship.
right after this rendering of the Old
does he
Testament
say-
into Greek. It's the Septuagint.
There we go. He's talking about the
Oh,
Septuagint. So I just
this
don't
is what he's talking
understand.
about, the people invading Asia. He's talking about Alexander.
Exactly.
So it is
Oh
the
my
Greeks.
God.
That makes so little
But I don't-
sense.
I don't
The
understand
Hebrew
how that had anything to do with the introduction of vowel letters.
It doesn't.
That's the crazy thing.
And it wasn't like everybody just decided, hey, we're going to translate all our Hebrew scripts into Greek now.
No.
That's not what
Yeah,
happened. Oh my God. My
Hebrew
class
writing
this
continued
week
apace.
was on Hellenization, and this is making my brain bleed.
Goodness. All right, let's see what he has to say about it.
By the order, as tradition tells us, of a pagan government. Okay, at any
I don't know what tradition it was that said that people were forced to translate the scriptures into Greek. I do know that there's a legend that basically the Hellenic king of Egypt was like, hey, you guys have this ancient tradition. I would like access to it, please. Could you translate your Torah into Greek? And
so the high priest sent 2 of every tribe.
yeah, then,
Yeah.
there's a whole legend about this. It's
Yeah.
mostly not true, but I think
Most likely,
the
the
core of a Hellenic monarch saying like, oh, hey, I hear there's these ancient scriptures. I would like to be able to read them. Could someone please translate them for me? Like, that doesn't seem incredible to me.
Dapper, wait
Nope.
until you find
I think-
out that Sparta is actually like a descendant of Abraham too. Like,
Oh, obviously, yeah.
wait till you learn about that part. Yeah.
So like this,
most likely,
and also
most likely though,
Oh, sorry, go
the translation of the Hebrew scriptures into Greek is something that started organically.
yeah,
In order to address the growing need in many of these diasporic Jewish communities living around the Mediterranean who just could no longer read the Hebrew scriptures and needed them in Greek.
And also, I want to point out, like, people didn't stop copying these scriptures in Hebrew. That's why we still have Hebrew manuscript traditions that are not obviously back translated from Greek, because you can usually tell when that kind of thing happens, and that's not what's happening with like the Masoretic text or like the Samaritan Torah or anything like that, right? So
Just don't say that kind of nonsense in front of a crackpot like Eamon Hillman.
okay, I'll try not to.
rate in a country in which they and their religion were peculiarly hated and despised. And that's talking about who? That's talking about during the time of the Grecian captivity that the children of Israel went into.
Question: were the Hebrews ever captives of the Greeks? Were they like deported or?
No.
Yeah, they weren't.
Okay.
They weren't like de-peopled in the same way that the Babylonians did. Although
I
you
was
could
going to
say
say
that they
Grecian
were.
captivity is a little bit
So-
sus.
Yeah,
It's I mean the
They were
situation
conquered.
by this time there was no like there were Jewish communities that were already living in this empire, and then the empire was Alexander defeated the Persians.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't as far as we're concerned here, it's Jewish communities were just part of this empire.
yeah.
So it's
And a lot of the whole diaspora was more just people moving than forcible relocations.
Oh yeah.
Because I mean, it's sort of like the same reason. Like there's diaspora communities of all sorts of groups in the United States. Like there's German diaspora communities, Italian diaspora communities. That's not because the United States went over and conquered Italy and forced a whole bunch of Italians to pick up and move to the United States. That's not what happened.
Yeah, like we actually have a pretty sizable Romanian diaspora community out here in LA in Orange County, and spoiler alert, it had to do with the Romanian Revolution.
Which was an
In the 80s.
internal
There you go.
Romanian thing,
Right?
Not an outside invasion.
Yeah, it's not like they were being conquered by outsiders. It's
Right.
like
And then
follow the Soviet Union happened and all that stuff. So like, yeah, they're
Listen,
like, we gotta
guys.
get out of here.
listen, and then when Canada makes good on our long standing plan to invade America and take it over,
Right.
okay? It's not like the Norwegian community in Minnesota are going to be invaded by Canada.
Like not in a particular way.
we're not just going to single those guys out.
Yeah.
And virtually nothing's going to change for you guys, except that you'll suddenly have access to universal health care.
And
And
we'll have
rainbow money.
Yeah, rainbow money and coins with birds on them that aren't eagles.
And polar bear. We have a polar bear on one of our coins too, you know.
Hey, that's
Isn't it? Yeah.
DM.
Can
the
you
first
please
cell had to-
invade California so that I can have universal health care? That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, this whole thing is over that one disputed island in the North Atlantic. That's the whole thing, right? Because there's that one island. It's a spit of rock that no one cares about, but both the U.S. and Canada claim it.
Yeah. What's the nation? It's like they keep trolling each other by putting flags down, and like the other country will come in and replace it every so often. It's just like a running joke.
I think one of them is like Greenland.
Mhm.
And
I don't
there's
remember,
it's not
but
just
it's funny.
It's not just flags. It's flags and bottles of liquor.
And see, that to me, that's the kind of like conflict resolution that we need. It's like, no, let's just troll each other. Let's not go to war. Stop, drop bombs on people. Just plant flags and liquor.
There's also a little triangle of land in the Sahara that no state claims, and the two states that border it each claim that it's the other one's territory, and neither of them actually want it. Also, DM, the first cell had to find a wife win for $5 says, the ancient Hebrews were forced at gunpoint to translate their scriptures from the original King's English into ancient Hebrew with a bunch of turtles. Yes, absolutely. All right, here we go.
Also, Fearmonger Lover of Consonants just informed me that's Denmark, but they've actually established a proper border now.
Oh,
that's unfortunate.
Nice.
Now we can't have any more flag and liquor bottle fights.
But yeah, it was Greenland, but Denmark because.
Oh yeah, well yeah, Greenland became sort of independent. And
yeah.
Also, like one of the only places in the world where a Native American language is an official language of the government. So, Greenland. Yeah.
Wow.
Like to a lot of people like to denounce the Apocrypha, saying that it's not canon. The Apocrypha, especially the Book of Maccabees, has a lot of history in it. Okay.
I mean, whether or not it's canonical in your religion, it's got a lot of history stuff either way, right? Because I don't want to say it's contemporaneous, but it's closer to the events depicted than many of the other texts in the Hebrew Bible are.
And spoiler alert, Maccabees might just have exageserated a little bit.
Just a bit?
Just a little.
Was it some kind of polemic?
About some stuff.
There's
Maybe.
4 of them, Vishanti.
Yeah, there are 4 of them. Although only the first 2 really seem to fit into that category. The other 2 are kind of like weird things that like it's sort of like calling all the books of Enoch, even though most of them don't actually have a lot to do with the first one.
Enoch that anybody cares about, but
it goes into the history how Israel were forced into following heathenistic customs. And like I said before, one of those heathenistic customs was being introduced into a vowel letter system, because it wasn't until the time of the Greeks that they introduced vowels to languages.
And remember, the other one was exercising in the nude. But with that, we're going to take a quick break. Once you realize that was one of the heathenistic customs that they were introduced to. All right, everybody, we will be back in just a few minutes. I will go freshen up my coffee because it's now kind of lukewarm. And I don't know who Luke is, but his coffee temperature kind of sucks. So we'll be back in just a few minutes. Hey everybody, welcome back. Thank you very much for sticking with us, those of you who did, which actually looks like just about everybody. So I do appreciate that. We always lose a few during the information. I don't blame you. So here, before we get right back into this, I just want to say, as normal, this channel is almost entirely supported directly through the support of the viewers, whether it be on Patreon, the channel memberships, super chat, super thanks, super stickers, or even just grabbing something from the wish list. So if you are currently not supporting and you are interested in doing so, some of the easiest ways are joining the channel or joining the Patreon. The Patreon is linked in the description. Joining the channel is an easy, convenient join button. Also, Fits of Microbical Rage gifted a Dapper Dinosaur membership, and it went to Publixon. So thank you very much. I'll take a drink for that.
Microbical, I'm dead.
Yeah. So, the Patreon starts at $1 a month. You can go all the way up to $100 a month if you're really feeling generous. You can also get.
You got lots of those.
I don't think I currently have any. I have had some here and there every once in a while.
Oh wow!
Yeah, no, it
Nice.
has happened. In fact, actually, I believe one person got the $100 thing at a 1-year thing. So, like,
Holy, eh?
one month, I just had like an extra grand just dumped into my Patreon. That was nice.
Very nice.
Also, Pillowpunk has just gifted a membership, and it went to no one yet. Apparently, YouTube just being really slow, but we'll take a drink for it. So yeah, there's a 15% discount. Oh, it was Eric Davis. There you can join the channel. That starts at $1.99 and goes up to $20. You get increasing perks. You can get into the you can get your name added to the credits as they scroll by at $5. At $20, I'll read out the names. There's also other perks. Like at $10, you start getting every once in a while. I'll just drop Blender assets that I made. Like this month, I'm planning to drop a little thing where you can click a button and it just generates a new star system. Like you can use it for space scenes or whatever you want. I don't care.
I've seen this in action. It's pretty cool. Although I thought it was a solar powered blender with its own battery backup generator.
I offered to make that for you too.
I know, but I couldn't come up with the cash for it.
Oh, well, Tittlak Rosie for 20,000 Vietnamese dong says, "Hello. How would you say Tittlak in Hebrew?" I suppose it would be the same.
Tomer made an attempt.
Okay. Okay. I mean, yeah. Hey, why not?
Oh, look, Tomer's here.
Hi, Tomer. So
Asia got here just before the break.
if a monthly or an annual thing isn't your deal, there's always, again, super chat, super thanks, all that stuff. And of course, there's a wish list. Both me and Bent have one. I think I forgot to add Vishanti's in so far, but I will be adding that in. Don't worry, it'll be there probably before the end of this stream. So,
How dare you?
you know, yes. That is, yes. Fade to Grey Brownian's Unicellular Wedding Chapel. First been a member for 21 months says, Black Hebrew Israelites are the Richard Carrier of linguistics. With a AIG's bag of dicks and all 3 of the kaiju emojis. So we'll take a drink for that.
Ooh.
And then Joshua Geese, guys, I'm going to go Geese, gifted a membership and it went to Border Barbecue. So we'll take a drink for that too. Thank you very much. All right, guys. That is enough shilling for me for one stream. So what I'm going to do now is I am... Oh, but Fits of Microbical Rage just gifted 5 memberships. So while I am grabbing Vishanti's memberships, I'm going to take 5 drinks... Or not memberships, her wish list. Vishanti, why don't you tell people anything that you want to?
Oh, well, you're just now putting my stuff in there?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Correct.
So the timer is Sal's Bitch Made timer. It's the number of days that Sal Cordova has refused to actually watch the video that he claims he's responded to at least twice about his buddy John Sanford, or as I like to say, John Sanfraud. And have a party once we hit 365.
Yes.
Because that's embarrassing, going a year without watching a video that you did 2 responses to. Like, come on. It's ridiculous.
All right, so I grabbed the link to the wish list. I'll type it in right now. The wish list. Boom, saved. Now you can get Vishanti things on her wish list. All right, here we go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. That's why I read in the book of Deuteronomy. Let me go back to it.
Oh.
That's why I read in the book of Deuteronomy.
You read this in
28:9.
Deuteronomy?
Yeah, this is... Look,
Okay.
dude, there are much better ways to do this video. Just gonna put that out there.
What the Lord shall bring thee a nation from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flies. What was the emblem of the Greeks? The emblem of the Greeks was the eagle.
That was the emblem of, like, everybody, dude. Who wasn't using eagle emblem? Oh, I'm just taking a drink. That's
Was
too
it the
stupid.
emblem of the Greeks?
No, not really. But
I don't even know.
It
Like,
was more Romans.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like eagle symbolism was unknown among the Greeks, because eagle symbolism is freaking everywhere.
Yeah, really.
Like, name a place that has eagles where the people there didn't use the eagle as a symbol of anything. Good luck.
Canada.
Yeah, no, well, that probably isn't true for the natives, like the First Nations.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, there's
they
probably
use eagles a
yeah.
lot.
It's all
You're
those
probably right.
those weird white Canadians who came over and just ignored the eagles for some reason, paid all the attention to the
Because
beavers.
I know the Mexica absolutely did.
Yeah, they did.
That goddamn
World's
beaver.
most Mesoamerican.
Hey, they
indigenous
make
folks.
both fun fur that you can sell, as well as they make vanilla flavor in their anuses.
In their butt.
Very useful animal right there.
A nation whose
Like-
tongue thou shalt not understand. Why? Because we didn't understand the language that they spoke in. They used strange things such as a vowel letter system.
Yeah, but
He's aware that
I'm taking a drink. I
this
can't.
prophecy isn't even about Greece, right?
Yeah, it's about Babylon, almost certainly.
It is if he wants it to be.
Well, there's that. And here's the other thing, right? Again, the idea that being exposed to the idea of writing vowels down is somehow going to change your language so that you know it's no longer comprehensible to the people from before. That doesn't make any sense, right? Like, here's an example. Maltese is a language. It is, in fact, a Semitic language. It is the only Semitic language written with the Latin alphabet. It uses a system that has full vowel letters for every vowel that you encounter in Maltese. You look at a word Maltese, all the vowels are there. Maltese is also Arabic, and it maintains a relatively high degree of intelligibility with other nearby varieties of Arabic. The introduction of the Latin alphabet and using it to write Arabic, a language for which it is not suited, did not, in fact, make Maltese completely incomprehensible to other people who spoke similar varieties of Arabic. Because the thing is, your writing system actually does not have all that much to do with how you pronounce a language or how intelligible it is as a spoken language. Right? That's why you can do things like, if you want to be a giant nerd, you can use Tolkien's Elven letters to write English. And you know what that doesn't do? It doesn't make you a speaker of Elvish, nor does it make the thing that you're writing anything that would be incomprehensible if spoken out loud by someone who knows how to read it. The same thing is true if you want to use like the Elder Futhark to encode English, or if you want to transliterate English into some version of the Hebrew alphabet and just start writing it that way. Heck, that's basically what happened with Yiddish, except it was German.
Yeah.
Yiddish is basically a Germanic language being written with the Hebrew alphabet. But you know what?
That's
that was Old
what
High...
happened with Ladino and Hakatia.
But like Old High German, that was on the one hand used the Latin alphabet among primarily Christians, and then was also being used with the Hebrew alphabet among primarily Jews. Those communities were able to communicate with each other.
Yeah.
If you went and like, I don't know, bought a shoe from like a Jewish cobbler as a Christian German, you could ask for that shoe just fine. You could negotiate a price, all of that, no problem. And conversely, if you were like, I don't know, if you were a Jewish farmer who wanted to go buy a horse from the Christian farmer down the road, you didn't have to learn a new language, even if you weren't using the same alphabet to write the language you were both speaking. That's not how it works. The same thing happens with Hindi and Urdu. Hindi uses a version of the Devanagari Abugida, and Urdu uses a version of the Arabic Abjad. Those languages are almost entirely mutually intelligible. There's virtually no difference between them. If you learn how to speak Urdu, you will be able to understand people who are speaking Hindi, and vice versa. It's infuriating the degree to which he equates a language with a script, and changes to the script with changes to the language. Because not only is he wrong about when the changes took place, and who introduced them, it still doesn't make sense, even if you were right about those things. So now that I'm done ranting for a little bit...
Okay. This is all prophecy being fulfilled. Now I'm going to grab the history of that.
Okay, I'm going to take a drink for the prophecy being
of the
fulfilled.
Greeks.
Is going to grab the history
Right.
of that, guys. Oh, in
This is the book of
First Maccabees.
chapter
Oh,
1,
okay.
verse.
Yeah, and he's also going to click his microphone
Which
a whole
again
lot.
is not exaggerating.
Yeah, so there is... So the thing is, look,
It's reading like a...
Maccabees was kind of written by, like, sort of like the proto-Chabad, right? They're like, hey guys, we gotta get back to our Jewish roots and be observantly Jewish about all this Torah stuff, and we're gonna...
But no, not that way.
But right, no, not that way. And so, while there may have been some instances of, you know, Greek conquerors doing crappy things to the Jews, the Hellenization of Jewish populations in what was left after, you know, Alexander the Great conquered the whole area was primarily people who were adapting to these Jewish customs in order to fit in with wider society and gain prestige by doing so.
yeah.
I mean, wait till this guy finds out that, like, was it Jason or Menelaus that actually, like, helped bring in the first gymnasium?
Oh, yeah, it was
just
Jason.
like, it's like, oh, they're gonna be like, oh, he was compromised. He was just trying to be like the Greeks and the heathens.
Yeah, but the thing is,
Also,
even that, it was primarily a voluntary thing, right? He wasn't like saying, he wasn't rounding up a bunch of Jewish guys. I mean, like, you guys have to strip and get in the gymnasium right now. That wasn't happening.
no.
People were like,
No.
oh, hey, this is what the high prestige type people are doing. I'm going to do it too in order to raise
Yeah.
my own prestige. And look, you don't have to think that was a good thing. In fact, I personally think that having some conquering force come in here and set themselves up as the new prestige group and then, you know, sort of hegemonically influence the traditions, not a great thing overall. But it's also not the same thing as, like, doing forced conversions or something, right? Like, this wasn't the Spanish in the New World forcing people to become Catholic at sword point,
Ugh.
right? That's not what's happening here. So we'll keep. Go ahead.
So also, like, where did he find this English translation? Is this
I don't know.
from, like, the Bishop's Bible?
I didn't catch the.
You know what? It might
translation
actually
he was
be
using, so fast.
It might actually
The
be 1611.
son of Antiochus the king, who had been
So
a hostage
it
at
honestly
Rome.
looks like the
Being
1611 King James.
The
hostage at
30
Rome.
and suenth year
Year
of the kingdom of the Greekies.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's
Greek.
1611 King James, because the 1611 King James is both spelled this way and has
in the day.
first and
I mean-
second Maccabees in it.
You can read it. It's just like, look, in,
No,
in those days went there out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us, for since we departed from them, we had much sorrow. So this
It's
Deweys,
The Deweys
now that word I'm thrown off.
wait,
and the
where-
Covenant.
And this device, device please them well. That's probably because they devised the thing. That's probably what that is.
Yeah, so this is almost certainly the 1611 King James.
Yeah,
Yeah.
11.
so you can get through it.
And it
but
says,
it's not
in those days,
great.
there went out of Israel wicked men. And it says, Shalakia, and it says, who's persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant. Let us go and make a covenant with the heathen, right? That we are round about us.
He's on 1.7 and he's still going too slow. I hate it.
And he's still just
That around
taking
about us, for their-
notes. Like,
This is your fault, Vadim.
Yeah. We could have been on point on 2 times speed, but Vadim was all like, no, go slower.
For since we departed from them, we have much sorrow. Shalakia, I'm reading it in Old English.
No, you are not.
you are not reading that in Old English,
Okay, I'm
friends.
going to take a drink. Hold on.
English.
I'm going to go to one of my favorite biblical Old English translations, right?
Are you going to show it on the screen? Because I can open up a tab.
I might. If I do, I can probably just do it from my OBS.
Because I can't see your screen if you share it to the
That's
to the
true.
audience. So
All right. I think this should be good. All right. Here we go. So
Titalac Rosie, who's been a member for 11 months at the tetrapod level, says, using this logic, Titalac is a Hebrew word.
it obviously is.
Yes.
All right. So this is not. It's not
Tomer-
terribly important that
Tomer can confirm.
It's not terribly
Yeah.
important that everyone be able to see this because it's just an example. So I'm just going to switch over to the this where you can see it. All right. This is the Old English for the prodigal son E quath sothlichamon haft de tweeën suna, da queth se yngre to his father. Father sele min del min achte de meto yebireth. The del de he him his achte. What that guy was reading is early modern English.
Mm-hmm.
Kip, could you understand any of those words that I just said? Maybe one or
like
two?
4.
Four?
I
Yeah.
think I got 4.
Yeah. Exactly. Like you might, the next line starts, after. Probably know what after means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Theowum, what is, that's the next word. What do you think theowum means?
Is that the
All
one?
his thing.
Nope. So it's after theowum dagum. Or dayum. It's not clear.
There, after one day?
That's after a few days.
After
Yeah.
Theowan Dagen
Yeah.
is a few days.
So the means then or the next thing or and then. It's kind of like it's kind of like adding a vav after every single thing in Hebrew to say this is the next thing that happened. So the after
vav consecutive.
El his thing yigaderode se yingre sunu on verde werlicha on verden richa ons voorspilde there his achte ibende on his skelsen.
I have no idea, but your diction sounds great.
Thank you. I did get an A in this class.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. So that's the kind of thing we're talking about when it's Old English, guys. So if you think Chaucer is Old English, you're wrong. If you think the King James Version of the Bible is Old English, you're also wrong. Please stop saying those things.
This is why, like, Cognitive Trifurcation really nailed it in the chat. They said, that ain't Old English. For one thing, it's recognizable as English.
Right. That's the thing.
Yeah.
What I'm saying, those things I was saying sounds much, much more like German than it does like modern English. In fact, actually, Old English is actually much more like modern German than modern English is like Old English.
So you're wise. There was no wise, so it's pronounced.
Oh, Mothra came by. Take a drink for Mothra.
Mom. Look at you.
Thanks, Mothra. All right, here we go.
With an eye, and so on and so forth. So it's kind of, just bear with me, Shalaki. Verse 12. And it says, so this device pleased them well. Then certain of the people were so froward herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen. Whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem according to the customs of the heathen.
I mean,
gymnasium.
So
place of exercise sure sounds like he's repressing their languages, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And so the thing is, even in this right here, this is not the quote heathens forcing this onto the Israel or the, I guess, Jews at this point in the narrative. It's some Jews who are being cast as the bad guys who are like, hey, let's go do this thing.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
It literally says it in verse 11. In those days went there out of Israel.
Right.
Wicked.
Literally, it's their own countrymen. It's like, come on.
This is
read the text.
One of the big themes that you get in a lot of Jewish writing is complaining about other Jewish people.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is the whole thing, right? One of the prevailing questions of the day, and by the day I mean basically the entire Second Temple period, is who are the real sons of Israel, right? The Bnei Israel. Like, the development of Judaism is basically just one big true Scotsman fallacy.
At least during a whole lot of it.
Listen, I joke a lot with my other Jewish friends, like, that there's no Torah police, but one of them actually got into a... Right, exactly, not for lack of trying. And two, like, Orthodox Jews that he happened to be talking to one day actually goes... He said that to him. He goes, well, I mean, it's not like there's Torah police. And they go, actually, there are. We're, we've been trying to police each other for, like, thousands of years. And I was like, they're not wrong.
Yeah, they're not wrong. Yeah.
See, Tober here says complaining about other Jewish people is so Jewish.
It's true. It's true.
This is something that took a long time for me as a mild-mannered Canadian to get used to when I entered these international academic spaces, was how much all the Jewish scholars just yelled at each other.
It's literally just like, you're doing it wrong. No, you're doing it wrong. No, you're both doing it wrong. It's like, y'all.
It's like a whole conference thing. Like, that's all that happens is all the white people stand back while, like, the Jewish scholars just yell at each other.
All right, here we go.
I mean,
and made themselves uncircumcised and forsook the holy covenant and joined themselves to the heathen and were sold to do mischief. All right. So you had some.
I do like how they made themselves uncircumcised. I'm curious as to how that works. Like,
yeah,
what are the actual
I'm
logistics?
curious to see if you guys had skin grafts or something back then. Like, how'd you do that?
Although I will say it is.
I wish I knew the answer to that question.
So there actually is a question because it was considered very rude and inappropriate to expose the glands during exercise in a Greek gymnasium. So there was actually a piece of string that was tied around the foreskin to make sure that no matter what happened, the glands wasn't visible. And so it does raise the question. Yeah, it does raise the question. Yeah. So what were the Jewish guys who were circumcised doing in the gymnasium in order to fit in there? Because it's got to be something.
Listen, Tomer's saying if I had my commentary at hand, yeah, there's discussions about this, as you would assume. There's discussions about how this works.
Oh, undoubtedly, yeah.
I wonder how many of those discussions are actually putting forward medically plausible ways to become uncircumcised.
Don't want to go there. I mean, you're already going to get demonetized, but...
Yeah, well, the last stream was demonetized again, and it didn't come back this time, so, you know.
YouTube is so ridiculous.
Hey, Yahweh was circumcised, y'all.
I wonder by whom.
You clearly haven't read the commentary.
That's true.
Israelites that willingly partook of the heathen customs and their ordinances. But you also have example, and this would happen to a lot of the children of Israel, where a lot of them were forced. Okay, let's get the account where they were forced.
Oh, he's going to get to that. He's getting to that account. Okay.
Okay.
This is the book of same chapter, First Maccabees 1, but I'm going to start at 41. Okay. And it says, moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom, right?
Isn't that be Antiochus?
Yeah.
Instead of Antiochus?
Yeah. Okay. I'm just so... It's so...
Double checking.
It's like I don't even hear it anymore. It's constant, right?
Yeah.
To his whole kingdom, that all should be one people. 42. And everyone that should leave his law, it says, and everyone should leave his law, so all the heathen agreed according to this commandment of the king. Yea, many also the Israelites consented to the religion and sacrifice unto idols. And
not only is it hyperbole, but even in the text, the Israelites who are going along with this are consenting.
Mm-hmm.
This is, like, again, complaining about Jewish people not doing Judaism right.
Yeah. This is one of those things where it's like, we know that Antiochus did do some desecrations. Mm-hmm. Like, we know that happened, but like, in terms of, hey, everybody, you can't be Jewish anymore. We're gonna that wasn't a thing.
Like, I'm not gonna sit there and say like Antiochus was great, but he's not as bad as depicted.
Kind of nuts.
Yeah.
Can I take this opportunity to do a relevant plug? Because
are you gonna write this in your book? Do you have a thing on it?
Maybe I will. I'll figure out where to put it. But one of the things that I did, I guess it was 2 weeks ago now. I think you were there, Vishanti. I did a stream on Captain Dabpool's channel.
Oh yeah.
About he wanted to do paleography, but I hijacked it to talk about one of the coolest manuscripts, which is 4Q Jeremiah A. It's one of the oldest copies of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and one of the things that's super interesting about it is all the things that's happening in that text. So it's something I've spent a little bit more time thinking about more recently. Even just last night, our good friend Simone had asked about some of the stuff that I was talking about within that manuscript, which is sort of relevant to the reforms, or I guess the Hellenization program that Antiochus introduced. One of the things that he did was instituted the worship of a Baal in the Jerusalem temple. And it seems like, so this is something that scholars are looking at in terms of with regards to the book of Daniel, relative to some of the imagery that's taking place in the visions of the beasts, which appear in the Hebrew portions of the book of Daniel towards the end. I think it's pretty interesting that the long insertion in don't get Don't get gross, people. The
I mean,
long
I
insertion.
didn't make a that's what she said joke.
The long insertion of 4Q Jeremiah A actually contains an invective against the worship of the Baalim and offering sacrifices to the Baalim. So, it seems quite possible that what we have in operation here is pretty extensive, intensive editorial activity in Jeremiah chapter 7 taking place as late as the mid-2nd century BCE.
Now we got a couple things. DM, the first cell had to find a wife wing for $5, says Jesus was circumcised several times by how many foreskins he left for the medieval church relics. There were a whole bunch of churches who were purporting to have the holy prepuce.
I'm not surprised, because if he doesn't stay dead, why wouldn't he just regenerate other parts of his body?
Does that mean that every time Jesus flipped his nails, it just generated
is
into a
the
new
resurrection body circumcised?
Oh.
Oh.
Yes, but only in the heart.
Of course.
Christine V, who's been a member for 8 months, is at the amulet level, says, House of Comments, handshake. Jewish scholarship, handshake. Yelling at each other for a living. Yeah, there's some truth to that. Although, personally, I like the fist fights that happen in various legislatures. Those are always fun.
Those are fun.
Yeah.
Sometimes they throw shoes at each other too.
You know what? It's like my favorite news clip of all time, which was some guy just throwing a sandal at George Bush's face. Just gets him right in the face, and like, yeah, good.
For the king, had sent letters by messengers into Jerusalem and the cities of Judea that they should follow the strange laws of the land.
Hang on. This is too funny. I gotta say this. This is way too funny. Okay. Naked Olympics are the best Olympics in the chat. Says, God has no problem with late insertions. It's early withdrawals he hates.
Onan.
Well, some of those laws is what? That you had to follow our language system. You see? Verse 45. And forbid.
I'm going to say, I'm actually a little impressed. I think he's doing better at reading this 1611 text than most
smooth,
people that I know.
right?
He seems to have practice.
Yeah.
So you know what? We've been kind of dogging on this guy's, use of language in the Hebrew and mispronouncing things like Antiochus, but
it's
overall,
so weird.
He's doing a really good job
reading early modern English way more smoothly than he is modern English.
Yeah, maybe he's got more practice with reading KJV. Maybe it's possible that he was in a more mainstream Christian sect than the Black Hebrew Israelites, and it was a KJV at least preference group, and so he's got practice at it. That could be. But I mean, he's doing a really good job. I usually don't.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, I'm not usually this smooth with 1611 King James. Pibblepunk, half dog, half canine for $2 says the resurrection spell in 5e restores body parts. But okay, so here's the question though. So let's say you cast, get some true resurrection D&D style. Do you come back with, say, your ears still pierced if you had pierced ears before, or does it restore your body back to what it would have been like if it had never been injured? Do you keep your scars? It's not easy to define.
I mean, this is another thing, they said in the chat, Wolverine is uncircumcised argument,
Yeah, probably. Yeah, because
where does that come from?
How could he not be? What would happen if you
because it
circumcised?
grows, of course,
right back.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is, maybe it's like Deadpool, where
so
he's got cancer after a certain point, but he got his healing factor after the cancer had already taken over his body, so he can't heal past that. He can only regenerate back to when.
So you're saying if he was circumcised before the healing factor kicked in, then it wouldn't regrow because it would already have been healed?
Isn't Wolverine's healing factor natural?
It is, but mutant powers usually don't kick in when you're born. They usually wait till later.
Yeah, they happen around puberty.
Okay.
Usually.
Yeah. So I guess that means he's also got both his tonsils,
probably,
and his appendix too, right?
I would think so.
I don't know how prevalent tonsillectomies were when was born.
Well, yeah, because
I guess James Howlett.
So, but I mean, he would have them regardless.
Well, so if they were removed before the healing factor started, then probably not.
Then probably not.
Because it all depends on when
this
he gets
right?
Yeah. Mutant powers manifest sometime around puberty, usually. And so,
can I just sorry. No, you finish your thing.
I was gonna say
if he had
if he had lost a finger at 4, chances are the
He
healing
would
factor would
never get it back.
He'd just
probably
never get it
never
back.
go back.
But if he lost it at like 16, then it probably would come back.
Okay. I mean, I have many questions about how that works, but I won't ask them
I
here.
think that we should consult one of the biggest Wolverine fans, and that's Dan McClellan. So
Yeah.
I'll ask him when I see him next week.
All right. Cookies Riot for $5.
so-
oh, sorry.
No, you do your thing,
Okay.
and then I'll
Cookies
do my thing.
Riot for $5 says, Jesus had a huge one because after 2,000 years, we still talk about how he was hung and got nailed. Thank you.
well, and on that note, Fearmonger, lover of consonants, says, Jesus kept his nail scars, so I guess he remained
That's a good
uncircumcised.
point. Yeah. Otherwise, the whole Doubting Thomas story wouldn't work. Strawberry Visible Taxidermy Glue Vein for $5 says, hey, if anyone wants to hear some of the worst butchering of language ever done, check out Dapper's new series on Carl Baugh. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Although
The
I will
first
say,
Avatar is my favorite.
yes, I will say also Kent Hovind, as an example sentence, wrote, "The cat in the hat, period." And that was his example of a sentence, which, as you might notice, isn't actually a sentence. That's a noun phrase.
There's also some excellent language butchering in my latest response to an insipid theosophy video.
Drop the name.
Can I drop
I love that.
I thought, isn't that the name?
Oh, is it insipid? Oh, yeah, insipid theosophy.
No, it's inspiring philosophy. Somebody also said that. I mean, apparently the most commonly accepted moniker is uninspiring philosophy, uninspiring sophistry. I've heard.
So look,
I like theosophy better because it's got that crank,
yeah.
Yes.
The thing is,
ring to it.
I've seen some of his videos that are actually well done, and I wish he would do more of those. And that's where I'm.
His video on like the age of the Earth is really good.
Really?
It's
Yeah.
He's got a
theology
history of
stuff
creationism video that's excellent.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, so listen, I've been holding on to this for a while because we're talking about the 1611 King James version, but my Dr. Fodder's wife is a canon at a cathedral in Chester, England, and she let us into the library, like the cathedral library, and they have copies, like actual copies of this stuff. So they have a 1611 King James version sitting on the bookshelf right next to
like actual first person.
Yes,
nice.
Like right next to their first edition of the Bishop's Bible, next to the
even better
third edition of the Bishop's Bible, and it's ridiculous.
That's pretty cool.
The cool thing about the Chester Cathedral is that it's built out. They have like this naturally occurring red sandstone in the region,
cool.
So it's built out. It's beautiful. It's
nice.
It's like this beautiful pink building.
By the way, the King James Bible was actually a fairly light revision of the Bishop's Bible. So it was actually already archaic when it was published in 1611. People really didn't talk like that in 1611. It's because it was based heavily on the Bishop's Bible. But anyway, here we go.
Burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbath and festival day. So we wasn't allowed to keep our heritage as a people during this time period.
Yeah, but that's not really a thing that actually happened, though. Look,
there's also, I mean, they're at the time. There was also some flexibility with regards to what the festival days were, when they occurred, which ones we should follow.
Well, and I think one of the things that we should probably note is that the idea of widespread both knowledge and observance of things like the mitzvot from the Torah, the commandments from the Torah, it's a fairly late development within Judaism. The idea that everyone is both going to know about these things and also make an active effort to follow all of these commandments. That's really something that comes pretty late in the history of, Jewish religious practice. And one of the things
because most of what we think of as Judaism happened after the Second Temple period. Because diaspora required, like, hey, we got to write this stuff down or it's going to disappear and we're going to go extinct. So then you have to discuss, well, how do you be a Jew in diaspora? And that's like, hey, let's talk about the Talmud. So
Grecian captivity. All right.
Again, Grecian captivity is a
captivity.
crazy
There
phrase.
wasn't. That's so ridiculous.
In verse 46,
Double bingo.
and pollute the sanctuary and holy people. Set up altars and groves and chapels of idols and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beast. It says that they should also leave their children uncircumcised and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation.
So, again, these are things that were primarily not forced on people, that they did of their own volition. And you have to remember, this is a text that was written to try to get people back to what was a largely imagined past of widespread observance of these laws. And one of the things that when I say, like, largely imagined, like, if you go into the archaeological records, you will find that, like, the cultivation of things like pigs doesn't simply disappear one day when you have the arrival of what's identifiably like Hebrew culture in the area. You have all these, like, you also have things like, we have archaeological evidence of things like little house chapels for home, like family gods and things like this, right? This is what you get in the Torah, as well as, you know, later writings and prophets, are primarily the writings of a prestige group who were primarily associated with things like, you know, the Jerusalem cult and things like that. And they were not reflective of what was going on the ground. So
Yeah.
a lot of this is constructing an ethnic identity on the basis of these earlier texts that were not previously well read or well, you know, widely followed. But they formed a core of a relatively new identity.
This is why I was recommending the Friedman book, because it discusses, hey, we know that there was polytheism or henotheism, depending, going on, that there was, you know, Asherah worship happening concurrently with, like, worship of Israel's God, and we found altars with, you know, God and, like, his Asherah, like his wife or consort or whatever, and it's like centralization of worship in Jerusalem happened over time, and there was competition repeatedly with, like, the Northern Kingdom and how they were worshiping in their priesthood, and I don't think this particular creator would like that.
No, I'm very confident that he has a fairly literalist view of all of these texts. So,
And that they might forget the law and change all the ordinances, man. Change all the ordinances of what our forefathers taught us, man. That they got from the Most
Do you
High.
think this guy follows the sighted moon calendar?
He must, right?
Or does he use the rabbinic calendar, but that's evil?
I honestly don't know, because one of the things about Black Hebrew Israelites is the contention that, for the most part, the people who currently, you know, are part of the Jewish tribe overall are, for the most part, like, somehow usurpers, and it's not clear in what way or when that would have happened.
Yeah.
Because part of the Black Hebrew Israelism thing is the idea that, one, Black people, primarily African Americans, but also just generally basically anyone from Africa, as well as, like, Hispanic people somehow, even though, you know, that whole identity comes from a Christian part of Europe, but don't worry about that. That they, as well as Native Americans, are in fact the lost tribes of Israel, who weren't ever really lost. That's another thing that I should point out. And there's really not a whole lot that I've ever been able to find about how they think this, like, kind of, like, switch over happened, so that all of those people forgot their ancestry, and then this new group of people who are calling themselves Jews, apparently, decided to take that identity onto themselves. Like, it's not clear how that's supposed to have happened.
A Black Hebrew Israelite once told me, he found out I was Jewish, and he was like, "You're not really Jewish, blah 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 blah. I'm the real Jews." And I was like, You're weird. I'm literally a Jew with Mexican and Filipino ancestry." And he goes, "Oh, Mexico? No, it's okay. You're from this tribe." And I'm like, "What? What drugs are you on? And can I have some?"
Right? Those sound nice. Although they might lead you to weird anti-Semitic takes that are gross, so maybe not.
Ugh.
This time period, they changed all of it and they made us forget. All right.
But they didn't make you forget, though, because
they didn't make you forget because somebody wrote it down.
I'm going to take a drink. Not only did someone write it down, but this is largely the story of the construction of the idea that this should be how you act and what you do religiously. Goodness.
50 is the point. And it says, "And whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said he should die."
Yeah, but we don't actually have any independent attestation that that's the case, and we have good reason to think it wasn't.
I just like to point out that Jillian premarital mitosis Wren went and bought a picture book of the Chester Cathedral.
Oh, nice.
Oh.
It's pretty cool.
Okay, and that's what happened, man. The Israelites were forced, man. They was forced to follow in the customs of the heathen. They was forced to adopt the strange language that they learned from the Greeks, man.
But they weren't though.
They were forced to speak Greek. Okay.
That's the thing. Is they also largely
they were already speaking Greek.
They were already speaking Greek.
Yeah, there was
like,
already a lot of Greek speaking, and also the people who were in like Judea or what would become Judea. I'm not sure what the terminology was at the time.
The Yehud.
Yeah, they were primarily still speaking Aramaic as their daily language and still using Hebrew often as a liturgical language. Like the adoption of Greek customs and learning Greek didn't supplant either of those things.
And later on, because the Greeks was the one that introduced the vowel letter system to the Israelites, and later on, it just
just drink.
Just
drink.
How do they like? How does that even work? How does it work? Like, what does he think the? They're not Greek vowels.
No, they're not. If the Greeks had introduced vowels, there would be so many more vowels being used in Hebrew in terms of the letters. So many more.
It's evolved after that. It just evolved that it literally got worse and worse, man. So I just want to go over briefly everything that we went over so far.
Now, eh?
Okay, so far we learned that the Greeks were one of the first nation that introduced the children of Israel, the Hebrew Israelites, to a vowel letter system by force. Okay, later on during history, that of course it evolved just like any other language and evolved into one of the systems that they used, and that system was called the matrices lectiones. Okay,
and I just want to point out again that the letter mem. He's flipped around the final version with like the letter that you would see in the middle of a word. So just letting you know that is blatantly incorrect.
Yeah, it is.
Final mem is closed.
Yeah.
Mem that's open is the one you see in the middle or the beginning of a word. So good job on that chart, whoever made it.
Yeah,
I'm so bourgeois. I just don't like Hebrew letter charts that don't have the final lamed in them. Oh. That's the kind of guy I am.
Matrices lectiones, and that was a vowel letter system, which later on evolved into Masoretic vowel points.
No, they did not evolve into Masoretic vowel points. Take another drink.
Not even close.
Nope.
The Masoretic vowel points was a later system that was put on top of a writing system that already had matrices lectiones.
Do we know? I don't know any of this kind of stuff because it's super late, right? But do we know if there was a progenitor or a system that the Nikud was based on?
I don't know if there was a previous attempt to make a relatively unambiguous version of like Hebrew that had encoded every vowel sound. I don't know. It seems plausible that there might have been some attempts, but I just don't know if it's actually the case.
Tomer says Akkadian doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's something we brought that up before, is that we have other languages that we have recorded things like transliterated names from Hebrew and things.
Dapper, counterpoint. Nuh-uh.
Okay, good point. All right, let's see what else he's got for us.
Okay, and that came about by the Masoretes, and what they did was the Masoretes, they took they basically just illustrated what the matrices lectiones was doing by adding points and dashes that made vowel sounds. Okay.
Well, no. They represented vowel sounds that were already being used.
Yeah.
Is it just super unacceptably pedantic of me to roll my eyes every time he says the Masoretes?
No, because I'm rolling them too.
Yeah. And also
Masoretes, but okay.
I also want to point out that when he says that these Paleo-Hebrew letters didn't have any vowels, not only does each one of them seem to have an inherent vowel that he uses when he pronounces Hebrew, but also ayin is listed as I. When Black Hebrew Israelites see the letter ayin, they make the vowel like the actual diphthong I is what they say.
As in eyeball.
Yeah. So like, and also he also has aleph listed as just having an sound.
Yeah.
So,
but Hebrew didn't have vowels. Literally, the
I don't know
first
why
letter
you would need.
Does he think that the Masoretes were one of the Canaanite tribes that was eradicated by Joshua?
I don't know, because
I think he thinks they're later correctors.
The Perizzites.
He did correctly,
and the Masoretes.
He did earlier correctly indicate when they were around because he was just reading straight from Wikipedia, and he didn't dispute the dates. So
yeah.
All right. Maybe it was they're descendants of the Ammonites who aren't allowed in the congregation of the Lord because the Lord doesn't like cephalopods.
They just wrote it down as signs. It's known as Masoretic vowel points or dots. All right. Now that we understand that, what did the Hebrew language sound like before? Now that we know that these points, dashes, these sounds.
Oh, here we go, guys.
Is this the point? Are we finally getting to the point?
We're going to hear what Hebrew sounded like before it had vowels. And if we hear any vowels, then I call shenanigans.
Mm-hmm.
What I have on the screen, once again, is the alphabet, okay? And this is what the Hebrew alphabet sounded like, whether you like to believe it or not.
No, dude, you already said
the Hebrew
that.
alphabet sounded like this. A, ba, ga, da, ha, wa, za, ha, ta, ya, ha, so on and so forth, okay? All the way when you get to tha, all right?
Wait, hold on.
Now, here I have an article
Time out.
going into...
Time out.
It's not pausing. Is it
Proto
So they
Hebrew
didn't have
had a
vowels.
single vowel, which
But
it didn't have a vowel, it was more a sound.
Is he-
okay? So Proto
he
Hebrew had a
unaware
single
that
sound, right? Now
is
I'm
it not pausing?
No, it's just gone.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
Did it crash?
it did a little bit.
Oh god!
Was too
But-
much and it crashed.
Is he like?
was that the prophet
Is
Jeremiah...
he unaware that those sounds are the same ones? That it still makes.
This is so bad.
Honestly, I don't know. Yeah, that's the thing is, it's hard to understand what he's going for, right? And I had to scroll through a bunch of this.
Hebrew has no vowels. The first letter is ah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and also has I
Okay.
as a vowel, as a letter.
Okay.
Did the Hebrew language sound like before? Now that we know that these points, dashes, these sounds didn't exist. What did the Hebrew alphabet sound like?
Oh, we already
Now,
said that.
what on and so forth, okay? All the way when you get to tha. All right. Now,
Ta is it? Not ta.
No. So here's the thing.
Ta. Okay.
I will say that the dental fricative is something that occurs in some Semitic languages, but it is not related to this letter. This is the emphatic T, which is often in older Semitic languages, as well as still in Arabic, realized as a pharyngealized consonant. So when you pronounce it, you have to constrict your vocal cords. You ever do the thing where like you blow on your glasses and you go with a really
Not
deep...
beating the charges.
I know.
Which one are we talking about?
He's talking linguistics again.
Yeah, we're talking.
But he's not a linguist.
He's identified
See,
this as thaw.
Dapper's not a linguist in the same
Oh.
way that Super Hot Fire's not a rapper.
I mean, kinda, yeah.
I also, for the first time, noticed that he identified the sere as taza.
Which is sounds hilarious.
I don't know if that's the thing.
Yeah.
I don't think it is. But
Odd.
So one of the things is that this sound, the dental fricative, does come up every once in a while in a few Semitic languages here and there. It's not Hebrew,
Not that pronounced.
and that right there is actually what's called part of the dark or emphatic sequence of consonants. And in most versions of modern Hebrew, most pronunciations of Hebrew, whether it be like modern Hebrew spoken as a daily language in Israel, or whether it be most liturgical pronunciation used by various Jewish communities, there's really no distinction between the emphatic consonants and the non-emphatic consonants anymore. But originally there was, and like I said, most Semitic languages that still realize this difference use a pharyngealization. And that's probably what it originally was.
You're going to get at least two different common pronunciations of Tov, and then it's very much overlapping with Tet.
Yeah.
So
Christopher Kennedy Atheist, who's been a member for 13 months, says Robert Carter is the Richard Carrier of creationism and credulously carries carts of caulk for CMI with a Godzilla and a triangle meme, so we'll take a drink.
I was going to say, this message has been brought to you by Dapper, not a linguist.
Yeah. Yeah. Apparently, actually, Dr. Josh Bowen did actually think I was a linguist after my interview with him. And
I thought so.
How
when I
many
first met you,
random
too.
people interviewing you asked the kind of questions that you did of Dr. Josh?
I don't
And
know.
so
Aren't
listen,
linguists.
I don't know.
I gotta say too, I talked to Josh just about every day, and this is not the first time it came up. I think he told me about it the first time like a year ago.
Wow. I made a much bigger impression than I was expecting to.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you did.
All right, we only
did.
we
Yeah, you
only
did.
get a little bit more time, so we're going to go through a little bit more
Okay.
of this.
here I have an article going into
He's doing high IQ research, guys.
Proto Hebrew had a single vowel.
Oh,
which
God.
It didn't have
Oh,
a
a
vowel
single
nor
one,
sound.
huh? Hey.
Okay, this guy has the same first name as Vadim Slamovsky Radchenko, so I'm blaming Vadim for this.
Vadim
The
Cherny.
Proto-Hebrew
Oh,
had a single
black.
sound.
I recognize that word. Black Vadim.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Right.
we
Now
really
I'm gonna
are
read right
dealing
here
with black
and jump
Russians, aren't we?
To where it says,
Sorry, that's a broke joke.
to it says right here. Vowels. Let me highlight that for y'all.
I mean, we're really at the point where we could just
vowels.
blame everything on Vadim.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is all your fault.
It's all your fault, Vadim.
Oh, hey, and Triceratops Schilfer Big Dictionary is putting out some of the differences between the regular and the emphatic, or the light and dark consonants. Hebrew, where we get the t and the t sound. Yeah. Thank you. All right.
Could be constructed in, i.e., base languages even easier than the Hebrew because of excessiveness of those languages.
What does that mean? The excessiveness of those what do they have excessive vowels? Because no, that's Hawaiian and other Polynesian languages. Those have excessive vowels. Indo-European languages don't have. Actually, most of them only have 3 or 5 vowels. 5 is pretty standard.
I mean, and then English is like hold my beer.
Well, English is weird.
English is dumb.
Look, English is a very unusual language, even among Indo-European languages. It's primarily isolating. It's got way too many vowels. It's a whole bunch of nonsense.
We'll talk about excessive vowels. Let's talk about modern English.
Oh, yeah.
Good grief.
Yet written language beyond Egyptian and West Semitic differentiation vowels.
Differentiate, dude. You were doing so well with the King James Hebrew, and now you're stumbling over differentiate.
King James is much easier to read 1611 English than this modern crap.
I don't get it.
Even in shorthand writing.
Vadim is not sorry, people.
Oh, okay.
He's not.
Fair enough.
The vowels is odd unless a vocalization was unessential or ambiguous. What does the word
unambiguous? So, all right, we're going to take a drink because this is just a basic understanding of why it is that some languages don't or do encode things in writing, right? So here's the thing. Semitic languages do this thing called non-concatenative morphology, which is a bunch of really big words, I will agree. But
Linguist.
I didn't learn that in any of my Hebrew classes.
Well, you're about to learn. All right. So most languages in most language families do concatenative morphology, which means basically they just bolt on suffixes or prefixes to things, and they leave the core of whatever the root is relatively intact. There might be some phonotactic things where this one consonant at the beginning of the word changes, or you have to insert an extra consonant to prevent too many vowels from coming into a row. But for the most part, most languages leave this root of a word intact. Semitic languages, on the other hand, as a result of a fairly complex history, have what's called non-concatenative morphology. So they actually take roots, and they will do things like sometimes they'll swap the order that the sounds come in, or they'll add in different vowels between them, or they'll even do infixes. So you'll get the first bit of the root, an infix, and then the rest of the root. Things like that. That's relatively unusual in most languages. But one of the things that it means then is that if you're aware of the grammatical context in which a root is being used, there's a relatively small number of ways that root is likely to be vocalized. Which means that if you're already a native speaker of that language, and you can see, okay, well, this is using this prefix, and that there's only so many ways that you vocalize this root after that prefix, and given the grammatical context, it's probably referring to this. That means that there's actually not that much confusion if you are, in fact, a native speaker or even just a very good fluent speaker of that language. So, unusually, Semitic languages, as well as to some extent other Afroasiatic languages, that's the word I'm looking for. The vowels are relatively easy to predict. Not because there was only one, but because the patterns were relatively consistent. Ivesci for $2 says, Q is a 5-letter word with 4 silent vowels. Kind of.
French is such a wasteful language. Wasteful.
Yeah, French does use way more letters than it really do. But you know what? I'm not in charge of French. Other people are.
Hey, French, be more like Italian and Spanish. And Portuguese to some extent.
That ship has sailed. So, yeah. That's one of the things I really want to drive home is that languages don't all work the same way, right? Semitic language, you learned about the triconsonantal roots, right? So you have 3 consonants in a particular order, and what vowels go between or in front of or after them can change based on the context, right? So that's why you have things like Like the word for book in Hebrew is...
Safer. Safer. Sorry, it's safer.
Actually, I'm thinking of writing. What's the word for to write?
Oh, katov or katuv.
Kev.
Yeah.
Or katuv, yeah.
And there are other
Ketuvah.
words that use the same root. So like I'm better at Arabic. So like in Arabic there's a similar root. It's ktb instead of a v. But like you get kitab, which means book.
Mm-hmm.
You get maktab, which means desk. You get other words.
Place where you write a book.
Yeah. Things there's
Writing
another
place.
word for like a scribe uses the same thing in the same letter, but realize that there's different vowels that can go in there. So if you see in Arabic something that looks like kitab, but instead of having the long A with an aleph, it has all short vowels, but there's also a mem or meme in Arabic in front of it, you know that now that's maktab instead of kitab because you know how that stem is realized in that circumstance. So you don't need this as long as the language is actively being spoken. But what was happening when the Masoretes decided that they really needed to encode vowels? Could it be that Hebrew was really not being spoken as a daily language anymore, and people might be in danger of forgetting how the vowels worked?
Maybe because they all didn't live in the same place?
Oh, yeah. So
Yeah, I don't know.
we're going to wrap this up here, but I just want to drive that home, is that almost all of this is just based on a fundamental misunderstanding of not just how Semitic languages work, not just of how Hebrew works, but really of how language works in general. And as a non-linguist, I have to say that some very
non-linguist.
some very basic information about just how languages work, the relationship between scripts and spoken language, and the history of Afroasiatic languages broadly and Semitic languages in particular could really help the Black Hebrew Israelites figure this stuff out. And of course, Pibblepunk says, Buffalo, 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 Buffalo. And also, again, bent with a Kent Hovind and an AIG as a bag of dicks emoji, so we'll take a drink for that.
Freaking Buffalo. So ridiculous.
Not in Finnish Journey for $2 says, French, how to use 6 words to say, what is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Get out of my DMs, French.
So I'm going to say something about this, though. If you actually analyze French independent of the French writing system, you actually realize that really the things that are separated by spaces in French don't actually work like words in spoken French. And one of the reasons is that most languages you can distinguish words from each other based on whether or not intra-word phonotactic rules take place within a phrase. And in French, a lot of things that are in the writing system look like a series of words actually end up using the same phonotactic rules as you pronounce the entire phrase as a single word would use. Meaning that if you were to just approach French objectively as a linguist trying to describe a new language, you would describe those entire phrases as a single word. And French would actually end up having a grammar that has a whole lot more in common with Navajo than it does with Spanish. Because languages are weird.
Not a linguist.
Not a linguist.
Not a linguist.
Not a linguist. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out. I had a lot of fun. I hope you guys had fun. We didn't even get to the next video in this because someone had to keep going on and on and on about things.
Yeah, someone who's not a linguist kept getting off on tangents about linguistics.
True.
Weird.
Hey, every once in a while, I like to have an excuse to talk about languages. It's fun. I like languages, even though I'm not a linguist. I have a history degree, not a linguistics degree.
I also do not have a linguistics degree.
Yeah. Although, involved in that was history of the English language, Old English, 3 semesters of Arabic. You know, it was a language heavy history degree. So
I'm gonna say, look, when you were talking about the way that spaces work in French, and just this is one of those things that used to drive me insane about Romanian, is you're learning Romanian and the letter I at the end of a word, just functionally you may as well treat it like it's silent, even though if you were to ask almost anyone in Romania if it's silent, they'd be like, no, we totally pronounce it. They really don't.
Yeah.
And you listen to people speaking and you're reading it and you're going, oh my god, they're skipping all of these, what is happening?
No, they're not skipping them. Trust me, they're right there.
Yeah, they're right there.
Why on earth did you learn Romanian?
Why not?
There was a place I used to work a few years ago where we had Romanian customers, and one of them would come in every day to get us coffee. And we just, you start chatting with people because you see them every day. So
Yeah, right.
he would greet me in
I
Romanian.
don't, but I'm told that's what people do.
Yeah, that's
Well, he would greet me in Romanian, and finally I was like, hey, teach me some Romanian. So he would start teaching me a few things, and then I started to pick it up, like, on my own. And, like, there's actually a Romanian restaurant not too far from where I live, and then there's, like, I found out there's, like, a diaspora community, and there's like, a fabric store that I go to that's really cool, and it's run by Romanians, and they were really like, oh my god, because when people speak your native language in a place you're not expecting it, it's very
It is
nice.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
Vishanti, do you have anything coming up that you want to tell people about before we get out of here?
Channel-wise, no, because I'm getting ready to go on a trip for work. Not really work. It's organizing stuff, but my job search continues apace. And I won't be here next weekend. I
No.
might be able to tune in, but I doubt it.
I'm only a little resentful of that.
Yeah, it might end up being just me and Kip, and
If you do
This
this
guy.
without me, I'm gonna be like sad because I
Oh.
need to.
Well, I've gotta do
experience the
something.
dumb with you.
all right. Kip, do you have anything coming up that you want to tell people about?
Yeah, a few things. So, I hadn't planned on it, but I'm actually going to do another live stream this week on Thursday with my good friend Dr. Moat. That would be Matthew Monger from Manuscript, or I guess MF School of Theology in Oslo, Norway. And he's coming onto my channel to talk about a short video that came out a couple weeks ago, I think. It just showed up on my stream literally 2 days ago from a certain now disgraced Egyptologist who seems to think that the Dead Sea Scrolls from Qumran were just tossed into a garbage dump.
Okay.
So-
Weird take.
It's weird. So
That
we're
is
going
one
to
of the
talk about
takes.
that.
One of the
It's a
takes of
take.
all time.
We're going to talk about that, and then we're coming back on Sunday, the 17th of March. Oh, I guess that's after next weekend already, right? But we're coming back next Sunday, 17th of March, on all the channels, so not just mine. You can watch it
St.
also.
Patrick's Day for anyone who observes.
Right, I only
Yeah.
saw that. We did the first Diablo Critics on Super Bowl Sunday. The second one's happening on St. Patrick's Day.
See, look at you usurpers trying to replace all the godly holidays.
Which means, of course, you cannot bring
Super Bowl
any
Sunday
snakes.
is the most godly of holidays.
Can't
I
bring,
mean, it's American Holy Day. I'm
mean,
just saying.
Yeah, right.
does this mean that you can't bring any snakes to this next stream on St. Patrick's Day? Snakes are not allowed?
Well, I have to think about that.
Yeah.
That's good.
All right.
So
Now, isn't
we're
there
making our own rules.
Is there something coming up on tomorrow that people should know about?
Tomorrow's Sunday?
Yeah.
I don't know. Anybody
Something
going
like-
to church?
Well, no, like maybe something at like 11 a.m. or something that normally you would be involved with, but maybe someone else is going to be involved with. Is that not on Sunday?
Me?
That's a week from tomorrow, dude.
Was it
It's
a week from tomorrow? Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to be helping out with some stream about the...
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a week from tomorrow.
I forgot to mention that. So, my producer for Diablo Critics, I'm sorry, Dapper.
I forgive you.
I've had a lot of vodka. So, so my producer, David McDonald from Deep Drinks Podcast, has a film shoot on Sunday the 17th. So, he won't be able to make it for Diablo Critics, and Vishanti's apparently out of town that weekend, so I had to dig deep
Yeah.
into the bench,
Third
and
choice.
I came up with a dinosaur.
I can't believe
literally.
you didn't ask him first because he literally produces his own show. Like
I know, but he's like
whatever.
I think I didn't ask him because he's like literally doing something like every day. It feels like
It does feel like that.
It doesn't it? Yeah. I mean, if it feels like that for me, I can only imagine how it feels for you. So, anyways, Dapper Dinosaur has generously agreed to come on and help produce Diablo Critics next Sunday.
Mhm. Oh, and we have to make sure that Dr. Josh doesn't feel intimidated by my non-linguistic expertise.
So I just don't say anything. I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, don't speak. You'll make him cry.
I'll just every once in a while you'll hear like a whispered negativity.
So, but if you do that too much, then the cognitive linguist on my panel will probably end up going on these 5-minute tangents, right?
You say that like it's a
we're
problem.
never going to get through.
Josh will start crying, and Dan will just like start yapping away. So
yes, and then the multi-linguist Matt, who probably knows more languages than all of us, is just going to sit there and drink red wine and pass out before the stream is even over.
Sounds fun.
And Jennifer Bird is just going to laugh at the insane.
She's just going to laugh. Oh, God. Chaos, everyone.
All right, well, what's coming up on this channel? So tomorrow we have Kent with Bent number something or other. I don't know. I think it's Shadow of Hovind, which is based on Shadows of Pajem. And
great episode.
Yes, I did desecrate Shran's face by sticking Kent Hovind's face on it.
Jeffrey Combs is going to have a word with you.
Good. I would love to talk to Jeffrey Combs. That would be amazing.
He's a cool dude.
Yeah.
He's cool.
He's also, as I said, the greatest Star Trek actor of all time.
Yeah.
So we've also got on Thursday.
Which one is Jeffrey Combs?
Which one?
I recognize the name.
So many of
them.
He played Shran in Star Trek Enterprise, the Andorian guy. He played Wayun in Deep Space Nine.
Also played Brunt in Deep Space Nine, as well as one-off character in Deep Space Nine. He's also Agamus in Star Trek Lower Decks. I mean, he's a bunch of things.
And you'll recognize him from Reanimator. He starred in Reanimator.
Oh, okay.
All right,
I know who he is.
On Thursday, we have a premiere that is going to be Fake Footprints Flummox Evolution, which is the Creepy Carl Part 2, which is the sort of Halloween special that I did, in fact, make last October, but it's only coming out now. So if you don't have early access, you're not going to get my seasonal series on time. That's just how it is.
Y'all, please go watch the Carl Baugh one that came out this past Thursday.
Creepy Carl Part 1.
Creepy Carl Part 1, because Dapper is wearing an avatar that makes him look like Dormammu from the Dark Dimension. And it looks
complete
cool.
With the glowing purple eyes and like the weird ridges that like spread out from the middle of my face and then just kind of go back down my body continuously. It's very cool.
I literally, this is one of the times that I annoyed him until he did something. And I was just like, Dormammu, do it!
I mean, it didn't take that long. It took me like 2 or 3 hours to set it up? Yeah,
just saying, it looks great.
Thank you. So then a week from today, my plan is to continue on with this, which means I'll probably be inviting Dr. Kip here, but we won't have Vishanti. So I'll probably just replace wherever Vishanti's face would be with like the transitional species slideshow or something on a loop.
You'll just have to pretend that I'm yodeling from across the country.
But with that, guys, I think that covers it for all of us. We went a little late today, but that's okay. I'm glad that you were all here. Thank you so much for your generosity and your support. The links for both of these two channels are right in the description. It's featuring I think it's either Kip Davis and Vishanti or Vishanti and Kip Davis. I don't remember which order I put them in, but they're both right there. You can just click on them, go subscribe. And I hope to see all of you on Tuesday. And if you do, in fact, have access to the Discord server, then feel free to hop over there because we're going to watch some Power Rangers Ninja Storm. And with that, I am out of here. Bye, everybody. Hey, before you leave, I just want to take a second to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or above. Ben Tovand, Felgavara, Tapioca Weasel, Whispers, E2V, Strawberry Vein, Denny5252, Aileron Teller, Horseflesh, Ian Chen, Kelvin Brostick Van Manen, Landon Knoll, Mabbity Babbity, Monkey They Them, Sphincter of Doom, and Volus. It's because of my channel members and patrons whom you're seeing on screen that this channel can stay afloat. Without you, it would all shut down. If you want to join the team, there's a link to join the channel below this video, and there's a link to join the Patreon in the description. On the Patreon, you can get a 10% discount for pledging annually, and either way, you get early access to virtually all of my scripted videos, often 3 to 5 months before they come out for the general public. Thanks for watching.